A colossal winged beast spirals over the castle, and on the wall a warrior roars, "Come on then, bring it on." While the narration hits you with it. Real hunters don't chase fame or praise, because they're about to reveal what he's really going to do next. So just wait. He just fades into the crowd, holds his breath, and waits for that one perfect opening to strike. The dragon yanks its jaws wide open, poised to smash everything in its way. Then this dude's motto kicks in. He steps up, calls the beast the Wyvern King, and brags that today is the day he finally ends it. The dragon just stares them down. Then panic explodes, everyone screams to run, and they scramble away in a frantic blur. With Motto right in the splash zone, the dragon whips its tail around and smacks him, and the instant he hits the ground, he realizes, oh no, he messed up. The monster locks its gaze on the target. Then out of nowhere, a shot tears through the air, and the hunter perches on the roof, firing an arrow that slices through the air and rockets straight toward the dragon's head. Takes the strike clean, and the monster reels in total disbelief as it finally starts to drop. The archer finally steps out. Turns out his real name is Gamma Snipe, and just when you think you've got him figured out, while Motto back there is falling apart, Gamma leans in and tells him the truth. He's the main archer for the S-ranked party, Twilight Dragon. He becomes a blur in an instant, driving the Wyvern King into the ground and sealing the deal so that monster stays down for good. While the rest of the party finally lets their guard down, a few of them start bragging about their leader. Then the narration drops the truth. These weren't just random recruits, they were top students who blew up overnight. Back in the tavern, the blonde leader just glares at Gamma like he's about to explode, and it's clear he's nowhere near okay. He leans over his drink, then leans closer to Gamma and insists they need a real talk about exactly how things went down during that fight. Gamma smirks, tells him not to sweat it, and insists it's totally normal to step in and save the whole team when things hit the fan. But the boss doesn't even hesitate. He fires him on the spot, and Gamma just stands there stunned, wondering if he really heard it right. He shouts even louder, making it crystal clear. Gamma is officially banished from the S-rank party right now. Twilight Dragon is done with him. Gamma's stunned and demands, "Wait, how does that even make sense? I saved you all, so why did you kick me out?" Mard drops the whole performance and says it plain. Gamma's getting fired because he outshone the leader. And Gamma is frozen in full-on shock, while Mard rips into a furious rant about how a hunter's job is to hang back and pick off the weak monsters. He jerks his eyes up from the table to Gamma because he's still stuck on one detail. He promised the whole team he'd take the boss himself. And then Mard explodes into shouting so loud the whole tavern can hear, laying down the law with one brutal truth. This is his party and nobody else. He lays out his logic. Anyone who dares look better than the great Mard gets kicked out. No questions asked. So yeah, Gamma finally blurts out, asking if the guy is actually drunk. Then the man snaps back that he only jumped in because Mard was seconds away from getting himself killed. And Mard's face suddenly turns pitch black. He shoves in close with that terrifying stare and demands Gamma to repeat what he just said. Mard totally loses control, screaming that Gamma's basically admitting he messed up the fight. Then a teammate lunges in to restrain him, and Gamma stammers back, No, that's not what I meant." But the guy with glasses jumps in and shrugs off the ego talk, then admits he's got real beef with Gamma's performance. He rips their formation apart on the spot, saying Mard takes the front, everyone else holds the middle, and Gamma is the one who's meant to watch the back. That glasses-wearing guy keeps pressing his point, demanding, "How is that not totally unfair, especially since the back spot is the easiest one physically?" He tweaks his glasses, then grumbles that it's totally unfair. Gamma's got the easy job, yet they all get the same pay. Her hooded teammate looks torn up inside, but after a moment she finally breaks, admitting he's got a fair point. So the glasses guy goes even harder and tells Gamma straight up that the only reason they let him join at all was because the headmaster personally ordered it. He reminds Gamma that the old man just died of old age the other day, so they don't owe him a thing anymore. Then he straight up orders Gamma to get lost. Gamma stands there, completely shell-shocked, and can barely scrape the word obligation out of his mouth back to them. The mage guy doubles down and insists they're the real helpers, claiming it's a Gamma favor to keep a backwoods kid like him safe, and Mard instantly nods, totally agreeing. Mard locks eyes with him and flat out says he won't sit in the same party with someone who drifts through the work, then swoops in to steal every bit of credit. Gamma stares down, fighting to stay calm, and insists that even if a hunter's work doesn't look flashy, it still hits like it matters, and he swears he's done his share the whole time. He kept mowing down the swarm of little monsters from a distance. Mard shoved right up in his face, screaming that at this point, he's seriously starting to doubt Gamma even has the truth. And right on cue, he doubles down, screaming that he'll be totally fine. No Gamma's help needed. Gamma just stares at him, completely stunned, and blurts out, "Are you seriously telling me all of this?" He drops his gaze with that, "I'm finally done with this" look, like the whole situation has drained him. Standing in the middle of the tavern, Gamma finally realizes Mard is even dumber than he ever imagined. He'd been suspicious for ages, but watching it unfold like this basically seals it. He's got it all figured out, and yeah, Mard's a total idiot. But Gamma still clocked that he didn't mind kicking it with him nearly as much as he thought he would. Gamma finally snaps and admits to Mard, "Yeah, I get it," then fires off a last wish for a long life before he turns his back on them for good. Beneath the night moon, he wrestles with one truth. A real hunter doesn't chase applause. He stalks the moment, then holds his breath in silence until the perfect shot finally shows up. A classic saying from his people back in the Snide clan. The kind people toss around like a warning. Gamma just stands there for a beat, looking wrecked, soaking in every last thing that went down with his old party. He flashes back to that old clan saying about waiting for the perfect moment, and it hits him hard. He's got way more to learn. The next morning, the sun blazes over the city's towering skyline. Yet for him, things look bleak as ever. Pushing through the crowded streets, he lets out a heavy sigh and panics about where his next paycheck will come from. He tells himself the only reason he ever ended up in Twilight Dragon was because the headmaster spotted him. Now that the old man's gone, he's got basically zero friends left in this whole country. But if he doesn't land a job fast, he'll lose the only way to pay for the medicine his 6 sisters desperately need. Meanwhile, the whole town is buzzing. People pack the marketplace like the energy might explode. One guy leans in and asks his buddy, "Did you hear the rumors? Twilight Dragon just smoked the Wyvern King with one single shot." His friend can't even wrap his head around it. Nobody else could lay a finger on that lizard monster, so the way they did it has him desperate to know. While they're still talking, a girl in a uniform strides up and fires off, "I've got a question." The uniformed girl swings her hand and shouts goodbye to the locals, and the hooded girl leans in, thanking them for the info. But as they march off, the uniformed girl lets out a heavy sigh, mutters that luck has deserted her, and says it's been ages since that guy got exiled. The hooded girl's determination hardens, and she decides it's time to march back to the Empire. She tells her partner, "Once we're home, I'll file another official search request," and they waste no time heading straight for their carriage. Inside this local shop, someone finally hears the bad news, and you can practically see their whole world slam to a halt. Turns out it's Gamma. He's stuck at the counter, staring at the shopkeeper like, "Why won't you take my stuff like you always do?" The clerk behind the counter snaps his gaze away and tells Gamma, flat out, that he's done. No more materials, not under any circumstances. Weaving through the crowded market, Gamma spots Mard stuck on every shop in town, grinding them down so hard he makes sure nobody can earn a living. And with a normal job out of the picture too, he figures his only option left is to cut ties and flee the country entirely. Right beside the kingdom sits Magica's empire, a powerhouse built on pure merit, where skill and effort decide your fate. But Gamma knows he's got zero pull in the other places, none in the Beastman Nation, and none in the desert elf country either. He calls a guy at the docks, tells him they're heading out, snatches up his gear, and he jumped into the back of a wagon, convinced that anything was better than being stuck in this country. Carriages rattle along the mountain pass, as Gamma steals one last look back over his shoulder. Suddenly, Fenio, his spirit bird, snaps to attention at something nearby, and an arrow-dwelling firebird flares up because that's how he hunts and tracks monsters. And he's like, whoa, this is super weird, because this border security is usually so tight that not even monsters can slip through. A blinding burst of energy rips across the sky, streaking straight over the trail. Gamma freezes for a heartbeat, then the truth hits hard. The target isn't in his carriage at all. Staring out across the distance, he spots another carriage right before it gets swarmed. Inside the carriage, Mabel can't stop wondering where everyone disappeared. Then Gamma's sister snaps that she needs to just wait while they search. Mabel suddenly snaps still, eyes widening like she just spotted something seriously weird outside. She blurts out that she heard this creepy noise, right as the creature's scaly leg slams onto the ground nearby. Then, out of nowhere, a whole pack of lizard monsters erupts and charges straight at them. Mabel's jaw drops when Gamma's sister screams that there are just too many of them to deal with, but she glances at Mabel and reassures her, don't worry about it. Out on the road, the monsters swarm the carriages from every side, and the guard is sick with guilt because he let them creep this close to town. He kept thinking, even if I use my magic to summon a whole army of Earth soldiers, he still doesn't know if he can truly guard everyone when a swarm this massive is coming for him. The monsters surge ahead with their jaws gaping, and the guard snaps. Then he starts screaming like he's terrified out of his mind. Gamma snaps his Hawkeye skill on, and suddenly his sight locks onto a magical eye hovering high above him, giving him a perfect view of everything in the area. He spots those venomous monsters closing in, and the truth hits hard. If a normal adventurer gets boxed in by a pack like that, they're finished. He tells the driver to drop him right there, and the guy's like, "You're nuts out here in the middle of nowhere." Gamma slides into position along the road, yanks his bowstring back with everything he's got, and then he screams for the assault to start. And once he zeroes in, he nails every target in one brutal sweep. A blazing wave of light rips across the sky like a meteor storm, slamming straight toward the monsters circling the carriages. This is his star arrow, pretty to look at, but brutal enough to punch through the toughest siege weapons, and it absolutely annihilates the whole pack. He barreled through, leaving only smoke and lifeless monsters in the road, while the carriages kept rolling like none of it ever happened. Inside the carriage, someone watches the whole spectacle unfold, and they're still in disbelief at just how insanely amazing it was. Mabel just stares out the window in pure shock, thinking, how in the world did he wipe out all those enemies in one single second? Mabel suddenly senses that familiar vibe in the air, and the guard beside her snaps. What's wrong? She snaps to attention and blurts out, I knew it from the start. Turns out it's Mabel. Back at the academy, she was insanely popular and ridiculously cute. And she locks eyes with him and flat out tells him she's certain that it's really Gamma. Gamma is stunned out of her mind and blurts, wait, are you really talking to me? And Mabel just smiles and says she's only happy he remembers her. Gamma tells her, I won't forget you after just 1 year. No way, and then admits he's relieved she's safe. Even after that, he still drops the truth. Yeah, they hardly talk at all. Right then, another girl strides up and calls out Mabel's name, firing the question. So you're the famous Gamma snipe everyone's been obsessed with, huh? A fresh woman steps up, wearing a smile so polite it feels like a warning. She tells him it's a pleasure to meet him, then introduces herself as Artemis de Magicus. So Gamma can't help but wonder if that's some kind of name tied to the Empire. Gamma's losing it over the news, insisting he can't possibly be standing in front of a princess. Then Artemis shuts him down, revealing that Mabel is the 8th Imperial Princess, and she's the one acting as her bodyguard. And it totally tracks, because Artemis drops the bomb that her family has served the Magica house for generations, while Gamma just stands there soaking it all in, finally clocking that Mabel was basically high class from the start. And right as it hits, Artemis keeps talking. Then he blurts the truth about what's happening back home. His country's got a brutal shortage of skilled marksmen, And that's why everything's about. She tells him she's heard all kinds of wild stories about him from Mabel, swears his skills are exactly what they're looking for, and declares he'd be the perfect addition to their army. But when she blurts that she's really there to scout him, Gamma freezes, totally baffled, just staring like, wait, is she talking about me? So Artemis leans in and tells you straight up. She's been hunting for him for ages, and even before that, she tried to track him down, only to find out he'd already quit the Twilight Dragons, and even though she knows it's coming out of nowhere, she still leans in and asks if he'll even consider the offer. Gamma's eyes go wide as the realization smacks him in the chest. Wait, he can actually land a real job. He's still in shock, like his brain can't catch up. Artemis just grins and tells him she'd love to take him on. But Gamma still can't shake this uneasy hesitation, and he presses her, asking if she's really sure, because he still can't believe he got booted out of an S-rank party just for trying this. Gamma panics she'll be a burden and asks if this will really cause trouble, but Artemis only grins and says she doesn't mind, especially since, when she sees his skills up close, she reminds him his archery is what saved them all, and she points out how the carriage and the driver are untouched, not a single scratch even. While he's tending the horses, a nearby guard chimes in, basically telling Gamma, yeah, it's obvious you're the real deal. Gamma just freezes for a beat, trying to catch up. He goes silent for a beat, then finally gives in, because if the princess is pushing this hard, he can't honestly keep saying no. Artemis's shoulders finally drop. She smiles and accepts with pleasure, making it crystal clear that they've officially sealed the deal right then and there. Mabel suddenly goes all stiff and calls him Lady Gamma, and it completely throws him off. Artemis snaps at him to ditch the fancy talk and just use her name, and that makes Mabel chuckle a little as she explains, yeah, this is exactly the kind of person the princess is still. Mabel checks in one last time, making sure he's really okay with it. Then Gamma locks eyes with the princess and says her personality is exactly the reason he's saying yes. So nerves hit him hard, but he forces the words out. Nice to meet you. And then he finally calls her Artemis, and she flashes him a bright, heart-melting smile and says, yes, I can't wait for everything that's coming. Gamma stares at Artemis and Mabel celebrating, and a thought hits him hard. He just wants to do his best for the people who actually want him there. The princess spots him drifting off and snaps his name, then reaches out to grab his attention, asking what's got him so swallowed up in his thoughts. Mabel scoots in with this massive, grin-stretched smile, and it totally blindsides Gamma. He jolts back like he's been startled. She blurts out a quick apology for getting so intense, but Gamma's already rattled. He tells her to chill because he's only a hunter. Later that night, the story slams into a gigantic city building, where a soldier barks to his captain. A woman with a long ponytail leans by the window, saying she just finished scanning Mabel's center's resume. She grips the file in her hand, then jabs a finger forward and declares the kid's got serious, real talent. But that's not even the biggest clue. She's convinced he's the one who actually brought down the Wyvern King. Her subordinate nods, says those details are way too wild to be true, and then blurts out, so you mean Gamma's hometown? Turns out he's from some frontier hell, so brutal and lifeless that most people just threw up their hands and quit trying to survive there. Gamma hails from a demon realm so far beyond the world that most people can't even wrap their heads around it, where mosquitoes can bite through iron, birds streak faster than lightning, and monsters claw at each other just to stay alive. It's a brutal wasteland of despair, where even the top S-rank adventurers don't make it out alive. Then the captain finally clicks. Now he knows why Gamma's grades at the Royal Academy looked the way they did. She figures a normal school can't even begin to measure a talent that insane. It clicks for her. If he really crawled out alive from a hellhole like that, then his abilities must be unreal. His file even lists a range stat of 999, basically impossible. So Gamma isn't even considering any of that right now, as he rides alongside Artemis. And when that gigantic city finally claws its way over the horizon, he blurts out, is that the imperial capital of Carter? Artemis flashes him a grin and asks, so, do you think this place is beautiful to be? Artemis stared at the capital and admitted it was way smaller than Datami. But a magical device whirs as the gate guard checks the reading, scanning the whole carriage. The guard nods them through and says they're clear to go. Gamma is stunned, because he didn't even spot an inspection. But the guard shrugs and explains they scan everyone with a magic detector to keep the line moving. Gamma keeps repeating, magic tool, because he's never seen technology used like this in his normal everyday life. Artemis admits that their story is still fresh compared to the Get Kingdom, but then she leans in and says they're proud, because their tech and military power can genuinely go toe-to-toe with theirs. The carriage rumbles past colossal stone buildings, stretching higher than the clouds, and Artemis spots Gamma locked on his stare, then shoots back. We've got to build up, land is brutal to find, and tilts her head like, so, do you think this style is truly unique? Gamma's blown away by how smooth the ride is on these solid roads. Everything feels so clean, organized, and built to work. Artemis and Mabel both shoot him warm smiles as Artemis formally welcomes him to her home country, and she keeps going from there. And she tells him that next, she's going to introduce him to the captain of her very own private unit, the Walnut Squad. Gamma's eyes go wide and she repeats, word for word, the words, Your Highness's private unit. Like she just can't process it, because that twist hit her way harder than she ever expected. And then, Mabel blurts out that they're going there so he can get an interview with the captain. And when Gamma hears the word interview, his nerves shoot through the roof. As he looks back on how brutally his old party screwed him over, a cold doubt creeps in. Can he really survive this time? Mabel beams a huge smile at him and swears everything's gonna be fine. But when Gamma starts acting way too intense, mumbling that hunters don't need praise because they're one with nature, Mabel tells him to chill, though she can't ignore how weird he's being. As the carriage rattles through the city, she tells him, straight up, You're the reason we're alive, so stop sulking and cheer up. Gamma stares at her and suddenly realizes Mabel isn't what she seemed at all. She's genuinely a really nice person, especially because, in his head, she was one of those untouchable popular girls from class. So the idea that a guy like him could just casually talk to her blew his mind. He finally snaps into focus and blurts out that he's going to give the interview everything he's got, which is. Mabel really hypes him up. She tells him that's the spirit and makes it crystal clear she's rooting for him with everything she's got. The carriage keeps grinding forward through the colossal stone city, rolling past. They blast through streets that actually plunge deep underground, until, boom, they skid up to the Walnut Squad's main guard station. Mabel hustles Gamma inside and up to the balcony, then screams down at the captain that she finally hauled Gamma along with her. A voice booms from a giant chair behind the desk, and the guy leans in, introduces himself as Malik, the squad's leader. He tells Gamma that Mabel's been hyping him non-stop, and he can't wait to see what that kid's really got. But Gamma just stands frozen with his mouth wide open, staring like he's seen a ghost, like he can't even finish the sentence because something's gone horribly wrong. He can't believe it. The captain is actually a tiny squirrel, strapped in a suit with sunglasses on. Malik shrugs it off, smirking that being a squirrel won't matter because the whole squad is already packed with weirdos. So Gamma just nods along. The squirrel captain leaps onto the desk and barks, All right, team, bring out the goods for our brand new rookie. So Mabel slaps Gamma with a thick manual, while Malik fires up, telling him the official interview is finally about to begin. That girl standing there is Charlotte, an intense officer with a ponytail and glasses, staring you down like she's got a secret. She introduces herself as Charlotte Oswell, then thanks him and tells him it's finally great to meet him, before adding that, You're about to feel the real thrill of teaming up with us on the squad. Malik jumps in to say she's the vice captain, and she also acts as his personal aide, but then out of nowhere, the squirrel turns into a full-on creep, blurting out sorry, while his eyes can't help but feast on Charlotte's assets. Charlotte wastes no time. She clamps down on him and squeezes hard enough to make Malik scream that his insides are seconds from exploding. Watching everything implode, Mabel snaps at Gamma to look out for himself, but you can tell she's terrified this place might not even be safe. And then, she lets out a little laugh and tells Master Gamma, "At least you look way less nervous than before." Malik just lets out this grunt while hanging upside down by his tail, and Gamma realizes, wait, even as a military unit, they've somehow made this laid-back vibe feel awesome. He starts thinking the captain might have been playing it up just to help him feel at home, but after a while he clocks it. This dude is just insanely laid back. Flashy as ever, Oscar Wilder barges in with a salute, booming that he just wrapped up his patrol. Then his eyes lock in as if he's got someone in his sights. He's practically vibrating with excitement as he spots the crew across the room, and right away he starts flirting with Mabel, telling her she's beautiful and acting like she totally came back just to see him, while she doesn't look even remotely impressed. Oscar slams the brakes when he spots Gamma and he snaps at Malik. "Why is there another guy here?" Malik then lays it out for him. This is the sniper Mabel mentioned. News hits Oscar like a punch. He grabs his head, screams at the top of his lungs, and acts like the entire world is collapsing right in front of him. He thought he was building his own personal harem squad. Then Malik shows up, calls him a baldy, and basically tells him to wake up because he's just dreaming. Charlotte snaps that they don't have time for any of this, shuts him down for spewing nonsense, and pushes them to get the exam rolling at last. Oscar snaps back into full professional mode and blurts out an apology, then reveals he's actually the boss running the interviews. Gamma's jaw practically drops. He tells Gamma, "We're going to the exam venue right now," and immediately starts marching them there. Then they crash into a massive training ground packed with towering stone pillars, the earthen barrier, built by Mabel herself, using her own soil magic. Up in the stands, Mabel is waving like crazy, telling Gamma to just chill, while Charlotte steps forward and starts laying out the exam rules. Turns out they're way simpler than you'd think. She leads him straight into the arena, where a colossal stone-looking monster waits, staring him down like it's begging him to strike first. Oscar's voice blasts through the area, warning Gamma that he's got just 10 minutes to smash the ice giant Charlotte just conjured. But here's the catch. Gamma can't use any skills, magic, or even his bow, and it gets brutal fast, especially when the giant finally starts its attack, and Oscar snaps that if he takes even one hit, the magic shield will shatter and he's done immediately. Gamma shuts his eyes, steels himself, and snaps into motion the second Oscar roars that the exam is officially starting. From the sidelines, Oscar just smirks to himself, gripping his handgun like he owns the moment, and he's feeling way too good about how this is going. And he couldn't help thinking, bows are ancient history now, because the whole empire is gun crazy. And the crazy part is he personally obliterated that same giant in a single minute with nothing but a bullet storm. He's got this look like he's already won. Certain Gamma can't bring this thing down, not with more style than he did. But Oscar suddenly spots something out of the corner of his eye and it freezes him. Because wait, what on earth is going on down there? Since Gamma's already got his bow drawn, a monstrous explosion tears straight through the giant's head like it's nothing. Oscar gets absolutely blindsided by the sudden explosion, and before he can even wrap his mind around it, Gamma has already slammed the real hit down. Charlotte stares in silence, serious as steel, and demands to know, did anyone even manage to spot that movement? Because it was. In the blink of an eye, Gamma spotted the tiny core buried deep in the magical ice, and blasted it apart with one arrow. Malik suddenly snaps up from the sidelines and grills the girls like, "Wait, did you seriously forget where a guy like Gamma originally came from?" Turns out, surviving the demon realm makes firing off a bunch of heavy, high-power shots feel ridiculously easy. So Gamma's just breathing easier because his basic bow didn't snap under the pressure. The massive ice giant's head explodes into a million shards, but Gamma keeps his eyes locked on the battlefield, because right after this, things are about to get seriously weird. Gamma glances over and catches Oscar staring right back, smug, unsettling, and smiling like he's about to say something. He refuses to throw in the towel yet. He swears Gamma's insane shot was just dumb luck, a total fluke. Oscar yanks out his handgun, locks it straight on Gamma, and declares they're settling everything with a duel. Winner walks free, loser has to survive in a toilet. Artemis screams at him to stop, because the test is obviously over. But Charlotte thinks Oscar's is too embarrassed to back down, and would rather turn it into a full-on fight. Charlotte tells Mabel to breathe, because her ice shield is holding the line. But she's already convinced this fight won't last once Oscar's shield gets shattered. Gamma stays cool behind a stone pillar, while Oscar hammers a fresh mag into his silver handgun, and that sharp metal click snaps the air into silence. Gammon spots the pattern in seconds, and realizes Oscar's stuck reloading after every 20 shots once that trick clicks. Oscar snaps completely, yanks out a second gun, and screams that Gamma forced him to fire both weapons at once. But Gamma doesn't retreat. He barrels forward and closes the gap until he's nose-to-nose with Oscar, gripping his bow like a wrecking ball. He yanks his bow forward and wham! It smashes Oscar's gun with a thunderous crack, and they get tangled in a brutal clinch that grinds the whole moment to a stop. Just before that, then he unleashed the leftover ice magic. Crack! And it shattered into thousands of razor shards that tore across the entire battlefield. Artemis stared in stunned silence, as the impact hit so hard it shattered the protective shields on both sides completely. Mabel panics and demands they call the whole thing off. And right when Malik points out hunters like Gamma aren't meant to handle close-quarters combat, Charlotte cuts in and tells her to stop staring and just look. Gamma glances back and demands, "So hand-to-hand is even allowed?" While Malik clocks it, both of those guys are only warming up because the real fight is coming. Oscar flashes a cocky grin as he levels his handgun, then calls out to Gamma, asking if he's nailing the gunplay and blending in. The two of them explode into a full-on blur, streaking across the field so fast it looks like a whole dozen fighters are battling at once. Gamma realizes he's trapped. Oscar's right on him, jammed so close he can't even step back to draw his bow. From the sidelines, Charlotte can't help but admit it. Yeah, Oscar might be an idiot, but he's still the Empire's strongest martial artist. And watching him struggle this badly is straight-up shocking. Mabel's blown away by Gamma dodging every shot, but Malik stays anchored. He admits the kid's got talent, yet he swears he can already feel what's coming. It looks like Oscar's not even aiming. He's just mowing down options, sealing every escape route, and blasting Gamma's ear-splitting zones so close they'll wreck his hearing. Oscar doesn't slow down for a heartbeat. He drives in a massive kick right on the bullets, keeping Gamma locked on the defensive so that Gamma knows he's gotta act fast, spots a microscopic opening, and rockets himself skyward to dodge the crushing pressure. Oscar keeps his eyes glued on Gamma as he flips through the air with total control, then lands cleanly behind a heap of smashed stone walls. Staring at the exact spot where the hunter disappeared, Oscar shoots back, asking if this is some kind of hide-and-seek, because the next thing coming feels less scary and more like it's ticking him off. Oscar notices Gamma isn't even making a peep while he moves, just like you'd expect from a real pro hunter, and Oscar watches as Oscar sent his booted foot silently through the ruins, and he grinned. Up on that high perch, he could see everything, so he figured he had the upper hand. But impatience starts to burn in him. He paces the stone walls, barks at the rookie to step out, and dares him to face him head-on. Right out of nowhere, an arrow whistles past Oscar's face so close it steals his breath, and before he can even react, he just freezes, eyes bulging as the reality hits. They found him. Hiding in the shadows, Gamma tracks the rumble in the air. He can nail the exact location of his target just from a single footstep. And that's exactly what he's got. His real weapon is landing a silent strike on a vital spot from far away, so nobody even gets a chance to react. So, he steadies his breathing, pulls the bow back again, and locks in on the shot like nothing else exists. For Gamma, hunting isn't about speed. It's about biding your time until the perfect opening finally shows up, and then taking over the fight in one clean strike. Oscar snaps under the pressure, tears stream down his face as he screams, "I get it," and completely loses his cool. He slams the brakes on the spot, tells Gamma Snipe, "I've seen enough," and officially declares he's passed the test. Artemis is totally shell-shocked by the news, while Charlotte and Malik just stare at the wreckage, like they're frozen mid-blowout. And outside those massive stone walls of the estate, Gamma finally lets out a breath. Because it all worked out, he figures he can actually keep staying here, but then he hesitates. He finally snaps under the pressure and passes out. Then his eyes flutter open again, and a gentle voice asks, "So, are you awake now?" The first face he locks eyes on is Raphael, the unit medic, hovering way too close, and she tells him he just got knocked flat after that brutal long-trip fight. Gamma can't even help it, he gapes, totally rattled by how she looks. She files the notice and catches him staring, then teases if he's really that curious. Gamma panics, blurts an apology right away. She just waves it off with a grin, telling him it's totally fine, because he's young, and of course he's curious about an older woman. So the word of his victory tears through the halls, and people can't stop talking. Gamma actually got Oscar to surrender, but Gamma can't even wrap his head around it. He only mumbles a quiet thanks. Then Raphael drops the bomb that Oscar is an S-class member, and Gamma's stunned speechless. Oscar sprawls in bed right next to him, breaks down the whole ranking system, S at the top, then down through C, and with zero hesitation just calls Gamma brother. Gamma just stares at him with total deadpan, then shoots Oscar a quick, straight answer. No, he's definitely not his brother. Oscar keeps playing it like they're best friends, telling Gamma he normally ignores men, especially the weak ones, but then admits Gamma is different, special, and worth real respect. And the moment Oscar calls him brother again, it throws Gamma into pure discomfort. Gamma just stood there, drenched in sweat, thinking, "No way, this guy's way too friendly to be trusted." And just like that, the rest of the crew finally rolls in. Mabel yells for Gamma, and Charlotte exhales in total relief when she realizes he's fine, right as Oscar swoops in, flirting hard and calling Mabel his beloved lady. Mabel's face hardens into something downright terrifying as Charlotte says, "That fight was way too close." Raphael then steps in and tells Oscar, "Since you lost, you're sleeping in the men's room from now on." Oscar immediately scrambles to fix it, dropping to his knees to beg for forgiveness and swearing he'll treat everyone to grilled meat for a welcome party in. Mabel can't resist it. She finally gives in and tells him he's always been way too smooth with his words. While everyone else is busy joking around, Malik and Charlotte hang back at the sidelines, and Malik can't help but gush about what an insanely incredible rookie Gamma is. Charlotte just nods along quietly, and then Gamma beams with pure relief, and from the back Artemis watches him with a gentle, soft smile. Malik keeps staring at the kid, and in his head he's thinking, no way, the squad just grabbed a massive trump card. So Mabel swings around to Charlotte and asks if she's joining for the food too, and the vice captain can't help but let out a little laugh. Malik tells Charlotte, "Of course you're coming," but Mabel cuts in, insisting she has to run and get changed first. Artemis watches with a warm smile, while Gamma studies his new group, stunned that he finally found comrades who truly accept him for who he is. It's like he finally found a place to belong. And then Mabel swoops in and immediately torpedoes the vibe, asking if he's gonna help her clean the toilets the second they get back. Gamma flat out tells her there's no way he's doing that, and that sparks Mabel to snap. "Don't be so cold." But the spotlight snaps away from the group and slams into the towering spires of the royal palace. In the throne room, the king leans in and grills Artemis about how their brand new recruit is holding up. And Artemis can't stop grinning the moment Gamma Snipes gets mentioned. She tells him the kid didn't just drop the ice giant during the exam. He straight up pinned Oscar in an instant, and that move proved his power is the real deal. The king's eyes widen with genuine approval like, "So you can actually trust her and the new guy too." But then his voice changes instantly when he admits they've been hearing scary reports from the fairy realm lately. Those things are getting spotted. Artemis stands in the palace and tells the king, point blank, that she wants her walnut squad to start gearing up for combat too. The king lights up, saying he can't wait to see what their new guy can do. And Artemis just nods along like she's in on the whole plan. She locks eyes with him, blinks out every lie, and calls him father. And suddenly you realize their bond runs far deeper than some knight-and queen arrangement. Mard heads into the city, studies a fresh mission order, and realizes it's a straight-up request to track down and hunt a volcanic turtle. The guild master across from him leans in and confirms the job is real, saying they got word the thing was spotted in the forest right beside the capital. Mard's ego explodes. He shoves into the guy's space and snarls that the guildmaster better start calling him Lord Mard starting now. The guildmaster snaps at him to stop cutting in. This is an emergency from the kingdom. Yet Mard just laughs it off and brags that their S-rank like that matters. He squares up to the old guy and snaps that they don't take orders from anyone who won't show real respect. Then he looks at his team and demands they back him up. The glasses mage blurted to the guildmaster, warning him not to rile Mard, because the king's throwing a huge party tomorrow. The guildmaster suddenly gets it. This party reeks of huge names from every single country, all about to flood the capital together. The guildmaster slams the news. An S-rank monster is about to tear up the world, and if they don't stop it right now, the entire region is done for. Mar leans back with a smug grin, then tosses out a question. Who's the strongest party in the capital right now? He already knows the answer. The hooded girl snaps up right away and she's dead sure. It's obviously them, Twilight Dragon. No one else is even close. With everyone stuck and the pressure crushing down, the guild master drops his head and pleads with Lord Mard to finally step in and save them all. Mard's stuck dealing with this mess because of his size, and trust me, it's a nightmare. But he shrugs it off like it can't be helped, then cracks a joke that he's the only guy anyone can count on. Then bam, he slashes the price, telling the guildmaster they'll only accept a reward 100 times bigger than the Wyvern King's, because they're the absolute best. The guildmaster is totally stunned, and Mar wastes no time, just tells him, "It's your job. Go make the kingdom cough up the money." And the old man flat out warns him, if they take that kind of money, they can't, under any circumstances, blow this mission, because it all makes. At the party, the girls start to feel the heat rising, so they glance at each other like, are we really gonna pull this off? The glasses-wearing mage bristles with fury and fires back, demanding the guild master who he thinks he's talking to. Like failing is just not an option. The glasses mage struts in, bragging to the guild master that with Mard in their corner, those S-rank monsters won't even make it 10 seconds. And then, Bard gets absolutely hyped, roaring at the top of his lungs that he'll slaughter every last one of them. No sweat, no mercy. Fast forward a little, and he's already falling apart, soaked in sweat, gasping like he just finished a full-on marathon. But the rest of the party is just as baffled, because out of nowhere they're getting absolutely swamped by way too many low-level mobs, and everyone's like, what the hell is going on? Mard cowered behind his shield as the monster lunged and snarled that nothing, absolutely nothing, had drained him like this mission. Even so, the girls in the back are still eating it up. Hood Girl calls him super cool, and the other one beams because they finally stuck with the crew. Martz's ego rockets right back up. He swivels around with a smug grin and straight up asks if they saw just how loudly he's stealing the spotlight. While he keeps striking poses for his fan club, the guys in the back are so fed up they look like they're about to collapse mid-sentence. Total exhaustion hit, and the glasses mage leaned in close to whisper, "Keep praising that idiot, and I'll make sure he does whatever you want." Turns out the whole scheme was to swap Gamma out with a few girls just to keep Mars's drive burning. And that mage is practically bragging about the move. The glasses mage snaps that ever since Gamma bilayed on the group, they've been getting ambushed by a whole swarm of weak monsters. But Mar just waves it off, tells everyone to stay put, and insists he'll handle it because he's too quick to even be caught. Right then, bam! A monstrous beast erupts from the trees and slams into the scene, totally blindsiding Mard and the girls, who just freeze in shock as this giant nightmare materializes out of nowhere. Mard snaps and screams that they were meant to race toward the mountains, not get stuck in this mess. The monster doesn't even hesitate. It barrels in and wrecks the whole area, smashing into it hard enough to blast dirt and trees flying everywhere. Once the dust clears, Mard doubles over and can't even stand. He's puking up pure exhaustion, word for word. The girls don't care one bit. The hooded one snorts and calls him weak and lame for being nothing but a major letdown. Mard tried to dodge the blame, snapping at the girl for not warning them about a volcanic turtle, when she's literally supposed to be their thief. The girl bursts into laughter right in his face, tells him to figure it out alone, and mocks him because after that beatdown, he looks like his head still flipped backwards. Mard slams both hands to his head, boiling with rage, and demands answers. Where did all the support magic meant to make him stronger go? He fires off, "Why aren't you doubling my speed?" And the mage just shrugs, "I already am." Mato's staring like, "What?" Because he normally reads every move with ease, but right now he's completely blindsided. As the monster keeps charging, Mard's gut starts screaming. Did he really burn through all his stamina back there just mowing down those weak mobs? And now leaving is the only play. Mard roars for everyone to brace themselves. Then a breath attack is coming, and he sprints off like his life depends on it. The rest of the crew scrambles as Gamma realizes this is about to be the end. A colossal blast tears through the forest, blasting everything to pieces. Mard barely twists out of the way before the impact levels the entire area. And then wham! Something slams the monster right in the face, freezing it dead in its tracks. Mard just stands there with his mouth hanging open, utterly stunned by what he's witnessing. Sweat drenches him, and he can't even process the sheer force of that hit. Then his mind races, begging the question, what kind of insane attack could pull that off? Back in the city, Gamma shows up looking razor-sharp in his brand new uniform, turning heads everywhere, because people can't even wrap their minds around the fact that it's really him. Oscar clocks Gamma drifting off and snaps, "What's wrong with you?" While Malik lounges on top of Oscar's head like this is totally normal Gamma. Malik checks in with the captain and admits he felt tremors from a volcanic turtle, so he rushed in to take it out before it could do real damage. Artemis stands right there, hyping her brother, because apparently he's ridiculously impressive. Charlotte cuts in and tells them he didn't run into a single monster the whole trip because of him. Then she adds, now it's crystal clear why the Academy gave him that insane high-rank rating. Raphael beams and hands Gamma every ounce of credit for wiping out everything in their path. Even Princess Artemis stands right there nodding along as they gush about how smooth the trip was. Then everything leads to, Mabel couldn't help but beam and gush. We finally made it to Jeed, no problems at all. The Walnut Squad finally rolls into the kingdom of Gita, and right away they're stepping in to guard Artemis at the party, body and soul. And Mabel's grinning ear to ear, laughing like the carriage just saved him again and again. Then she beams at Gamma and pours out her thanks, but Gamma just shrugs it off, claiming he didn't do anything special to earn the praise. He's trying to play it cool and act natural, even though inside he's panicking, baffled that he's smiling like an idiot, until it hits him. Mabel just sees him as another teammate, and now he's terrified he's not the only one spiraling over the vibe. Mabel clocks his new look and immediately grins, telling him he looks amazing in that uniform. Then she winks like, we finally match, and the thought lingers like it might. And suddenly Gamma goes full philosopher, locked in his head, realizing he's only a lone hunter, just one tiny piece of this whole massive world. The squad barrels through the city, Raphael roaring with laughter in the back, while Gamma stays locked in, Malik perched on his shoulder as they finally slam into the massive guest house in the capital. And now it's game on, because work starts right now. So they storm inside to go over the plan. Charlotte slaps down a map of the venue, yanks up the guest list for the mission, and then she locks eyes with Gamma and says, I've got one more thing just for you. Gamma stares at that tiny device and asks, is that an earring? Malik grins and says, no, it's a magic comm tool made so the whole squad can talk to each other instantly, even if they're miles apart inside the venue. And when Gamma starts to panic a little and worries that it might not be okay for him to take something that looks that pricey, Malik shuts his doubts down fast, saying he crafted it by hand just for him, so Gamma should go on and hype him up. Gamma's jaw drops as he blurts, "Wait, did the captain really build that himself?" Raphael just stands there grinning like it's no big deal. She breaks it down. Malik is a real, legit magic tool artificer, and she even jokes that he's not just some perverted squirrel, though. Even though Malik keeps a straight face and lays it out, an artificer can load items with all kinds of magic. Gamma's eyes widen, because if the captain can craft something this useful, then he's clearly not just any captain. But honestly, the fact that a squirrel can even talk makes him feel totally one of a kind. Raphael just keeps gripping the captain tight while Gamma snaps the spotlight back to the job. He yells for Charlotte and demands to know exactly where everyone's meant to stand for the mission. Oscar starts whining the second it kicks off, asking why he's stuck doing perimeter guard duty with his brother, like there's not a better option. Then tries to sell the idea that a male-female pair would look way cooler, but Charlotte cuts him off fast, saying his real motives are crystal clear. Charlotte cuts in and says Gamma's Hawkeye is flawless for watching the outside, but there's a catch. The guests of honor demanded no weapons be allowed inside the party venue, so if some shady stranger slips inside, Gamma and the rest are the only ones tough enough to grab them and take them down with their bare hands. Artemis finally admits that, with everything the way it is, there's not much they can change. So Gamma blurts out whether the outside security is really going to be all right. Charlotte shuts it down fast, telling them her golems will blanket the garden, Mabel, S2, so everything gets covered. Basically, those two are taking point, guarding the whole castle garden area and making sure nothing slips through. Raphael takes the job as Artemis's personal escort, but Artemis just laughs and tells him she's counting on him. And the two of them look totally mismatched in those fancy party dresses, like one wrong step away from walking into the most high-end event in the world. The ballroom is overflowing. Nobles and power players chatter beneath the crushing glow of giant chandeliers, but the game's only just beginning. Gamma stays locked in, fully dressed in his formal uniform, while Malik perches on his shoulder and leans in to ask how the party vibe is hitting. So Malik hangs on every word as Gamma says he still hasn't seen a single suspicious thing. And for now, everything's perfectly normal, right up until Gamma jerks to a freeze the second someone nearby shouts a name that sounds way too close to his. Then it all cuts off like, and then a wah. In a glittering fancy dress, she clocks him instantly and goes wild, then blurts out, trembling, "Wait, is that really Lord Gamma standing right in front of me?" Turns out the woman is Princess Hestia herself, and the second she sees him, her whole face lights up like she's genuinely thrilled. Malik spirals on Gamma's shoulder, screaming that she's the first princess of Get and demanding to know how they even know each other. Gamma tries to play it cool, saying he only helped her out one time years ago, and that's literally the only time they've ever really met. But Hestia tells him to chill, admits she's been thinking about him for years, and Gamma is hit so hard he can barely even process it. She tells me she got a message from his old party. He went missing, and the whole time she's been falling apart with worry, but Gamp. The second Gamma clears the air, he snaps. He didn't vanish at all, he got kicked out of the group. Hestia pauses for a beat, admits she sensed something was off, and reveals she'd already been planning to dig into it. She reasons that if they're brave enough to lie about him, then the whole volcanic turtle killing report is probably a straight-up fabrication too. Twilight Dragon pushed her into admitting the truth, that even her own guards didn't believe he could take down a beast like that without Gamma hauling the weight. Gamma just grins and tells her, "Don't stress about it," because he already handled that monster on his own before he even left. Gamma just grins at the princess and swears he's fine, because the whole country is finally safe. Hestia swears she'll deliver his formal reward through official channels, but Gamma panics and blurts that he can't accept a thing, because he's not an adventurer anymore. He tries to dodge it again, but she shuts that down fast. She tells him he has to let them properly thank him. She throws him one last look, whispers, "I'll see you again soon," then breaks off mid-sentence. Gamma just stands in the middle of the party like a pretty statue, taking in the whole royal drama without blinking. Malik leans in and asks if Gamma noticed the way she was staring at him, then swears the princess is totally into him, until Gamma snaps back, telling the squirrel he's out of his mind, because he's just a plain, ordinary commoner. Then the room drops into total darkness, and a noble freaks out, screaming at the top of his lungs for someone to bring the lights back. Gamma's eyes narrowed in an instant, as a sickening wave of bloodlust surged out of the shadows. Hester shouts his name in the dark, and Gamma fires back that he's already on the move to deal with it. He slams his night vision hunter skill on, and suddenly the pitch-black world feels like it's barely dark at all. Gamma starts growling orders into the dark, warning Oscar that an assassin is closing in from his 2 o'clock, then yells at him to move and protect Artemis right now. Oscar doesn't blink. He's already snatching his gear while Gamma whips his focus to Raphael, screams for the professor to snatch Artemis, and yells them to sprint toward 9 o'clock. He makes his move, betting that if he shuffles everyone around like this, no one will have the chance to catch them off guard again. He catches a flicker moving in the dark and snatches a dinner plate off the table, then hurls it with razor-perfect aim straight through the pitch-black room. The plate rockets through the air and smashes an assassin dead in the head. He drops instantly, while Hestia just freezes there, utterly baffled. Gamma swings by to check on her, asking the princess if she's okay, but she's so out of it that all she can manage is barely a single word. She hears his voice and snaps, "What the hell is going on?" Then Gamma lays it all out, telling her those guys weren't just random attackers. They were assassins, and they were zeroed in on her. He tells her straight up, since they hit both her and Artemis, they're out there trying to snatch Earth Kingdom VIPs. Then he orders her to stay right where she is. He spots 10 armed guys scattered around the venue, but then his gut screams trouble, because dropping them all was way too effortless. He stares down at the guys he just smashed, and even with them crumpled on the ground, that brutal hunger from earlier still won't let up, so he can't shake the feeling he just stepped into a trap. Malik snaps at Gamma to listen up, and Hestia jumps in too, telling him to use them, and Gamma just locks eyes with that squirrel, stuck wondering if it's really the same Captain Maliki, nose and all. Malik wastes no time. He tells Gamma to hunt the enemies' positions while he and Oscar go in for the heavy work. But as Gamma starts to actually consider trusting someone else, the captain leans in and reminds him, "We're a team now," and says they're going to tear through this entire mess together. Then it finally clicks for Gamma. This is what real comrades are supposed to feel like, but he can't. And he can't stop replaying it, being treated like a fraud, never once trusted, never getting a thank you, then getting tossed out in the end. He studies his brand new crew, and the moment he does, he realizes this time is nothing like before. Gamma nods like he gets it, tells the captain he's with them, and then vows to himself he's going to fight right alongside these guys. Malik snaps orders at the rest of the squad, shouting that Gamma will be their eyes in the dark. Then he drills Oscar and Raphael to start clearing the room while he leans in and warns Mabel and Charlotte that enemies could be lurking right outside, then tells them to hang tough until he can send Gamma over to back them up. The whole crew is buzzing with battle energy as they yell back a thunderous "Roger" to the captain's orders. And then Alec fixes his headset and thinks, asterisk for once asterisk, it actually feels damn good being trusted. Gamma scans the estate, then his shoulders drop. He doesn't have to fight solo anymore. With these guys backing him up, he snaps into action and calls out enemy positions at 3 o'clock to keep the whole team safe. Hours later, the chaos finally fades out, and Princess Hestia steps into the ballroom facing the crowd like, "Stay calm, right now." She fires up the crowd, warning them about the intruders who tried to sneak into the venue and steal their night. And she tells him how her guards stepped in hard and wiped every single one of them out. The noble guest stared in awe and basically said, Of course, Artemis's private squad was never going to disappoint. Raphael barrels straight into Gamma's space, grinning ear to ear, and tells him like it's no big deal that he totally saved them out there. She pushes on, swearing she'd be totally done for in the dark without his help. Then she barrels in for a huge hug, blurting brother, and leaving Gamma absolutely flustered. Gamma tells himself he should be the one thanking them, because it was their trust that carried him to victory, and it's finally taught him what true comradeship feels like. Princess Hesha snapped her voice to the captain, warning everyone that they'd better brace for some serious reinforcements, because this isn't going to be a quick fight. As Malik spots Mabel acting weird and immediately pulls her aside, demanding to know what's going on. So Mabel leans in and says, "Dragons aren't just flying around, they're hauling monsters into the garden to kick off a full-on invasion." She snaps to the crew and yells that the enemy is rolling in. Huge numbers, no mercy. Malik shoves Gamma forward and growls, "Get out there, right now. We need your exact power and we need it bad." A maid barrels over to Gamma, breathless, telling him she finally has the bows they've been guarding safe for him. And Gamma snatches the gear from her, shoots a grateful nod and wastes no time. She's finally ready to jump into the fight. He fires off the Phoenix Arrow, Fenio, an automatic tracker that hunts monsters by itself, and the impact leaves the whole area in a blazing mess, well before the rest of the story cuts off. Every inch of that courtyard erupted into a full-on war zone, and the guards fought tooth and nail, desperately trying to keep the monsters from overrunning them. Mabel stands beside her gigantic golem and fires off a question to Gamma. What's their next move? The soldiers pounded the monster with everything they had, but it didn't even twitch. Gamma couldn't stop thinking, is this thing immortal? He leans in for a better look, and bam, it's the same dragon as before, the old scar on its eye screaming recognition. And then it hits him that thing, it's actually the corpse of the Wyvern King. Gamma tells Mabel her opponent is already dead, and the second it clicks, she realizes they're basically slugging it out with a walking zombie nightmare. Charlotte blurts out that she can't feel a single trace of magic controlling those bodies, because that makes absolutely no sense. But Gamma snaps. He's hunting down the person behind this, the one puppeteering the dead. He surveys the battlefield, then spots a strange swarm of mosquitoes circling the monsters like they're hunting something. Then it hits him. These bugs aren't just bugs, they're yanking the strings, dragging the corpses around like marionettes. Charlotte spots the nightmare instantly and shrieks at Gamma to bolt, right now. But Gamma doesn't move. He stays frozen, insisting the real puppet master is close, and he can practically feel the killing intent crawling over his skin as he vows to hunt them down like the ultimate hunter. Charlotte snaps at Gamma to stay put, shouting that he must absolutely not cross to her side, but Gamma reassures her, "Don't worry," and swears he'll hunt down and take out every last mosquito swarming that monster. He fires a star arrow into the heavens, and the sky erupts in blazing light as the attack hammers down on the Wyvern King's corpse. The magic arrows lock on, bam, 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 dropping those weird bugs out of the sky one after another. And the Gamma zeroes in on the real danger and tells them straight up, whatever the enemy's bringing, it's so brutal it feels like its killing intent is clinging to his skin. He's left wondering if the one stalking him is ducking somewhere his usual senses can't possibly reach. Then he whips around to Mabel and demands, "Can you dig up the ground right here where we stand?" And she's like, "Count me in," no hesitation. She slams into the earth and blasts it with an earth-clawed transformation spell, tearing up the ground in a roaring explosion of dirt and stone. The nearby soldiers went speechless as a massive hole suddenly tore open right in the middle of the garden. Mabel tells herself she did exactly what Gamma demanded, but she still can't shake the question. Was turning everything into chaos really the smart move? Gamma leans into the dark entrance, eyes locked, figuring out the enemies cooking up those winged bugs in the sewer. Back at the mansion, the guests cluster together, totally lost. Then the chaos outside kicks off and everything starts spilling into view. Malik gets Charlotte's straight update and immediately fires the news to the whole squad. He throws the whole place into panic mode, ordering everyone to lock inside, unless you're armed and ready to fight. Oscar blurts, "What's happening out there?" But Malik just grins and says the enemy has finally shown up. The captain breaks it down. Someone's using bugs to yank the dead around like puppets, which means the attacker was nothing but a corpse walking. Raphael's eyes dart with worry as he demands, "Did the captain ever finally tell Gamma about that demon?" Malik can't believe it. He never thought they'd turn up anywhere except Magicus. Oscar can't even process it. Hester reminds them the demon race was supposedly wiped out for ages. The princess looks completely wrecked, terrified as she can't understand why this nightmare is crashing back into her life again after all this time. They say the hero god crushed the demon king 2,000 years ago. Only the legend whispers the hero was just a kid from. And Malik remembers hearing that tale before. Because in Gita, that legend is so real everyone somehow rose up knowing it. The captain springs off Raphael's head, leans in, and tells her he's heading out to back up Gamma. Charlotte whips around to Oscar and demands, "Did you bring that prototype?" And Oscar fires back, "You can count on me." He tells her the gear's already loaded in the carriage outside, and they waste no time, sprinting out to grab it right now. The squad barrels through the courtyard rubble, sprinting for the exit as they close in on it, right now, while they still can. While they stare at the wreckage, they stumble on something off. There's a skinny, strange creature standing there, and it instantly makes them question what the heck they're even seeing. Hesha is completely stunned. She even admits she's never once heard of monsters like these ever existing in the world. Artemis Waite, the 8th Imperial Princess, stays ice calm as she stares down the chaos and she lays it out. These demons crashing the mansion are a brand new breed, and it leaves Hestia reeling, even more stunned than before. Artemis locks in on the truth and says a brand new demon species first crashed into the Empire about 10 years ago. There was this giant insect whose body looked like it was forged from solid steel, and its wings shimmered even more strangely, glowing like they were forged from countless specks of living light. And here's the wildest part. Somehow they spoke plain human language and used it to name themselves. They dubbed themselves the demon insect race, and the name totally fit when you saw them looming over the city's shattered ruins. Back in the present, one of those massive beasts looms over Gamma and the others, snarling that they're fools and inferior creatures, until it demands they hand over the ruler alive. Then backs the threat with a sky-choking swarm of smaller bugs roaring in overhead. Gamma watches, frozen, as the demon barks orders and demands they do it, right now. And it tells them straight up, if they don't listen, the swarm called Buzz is going to devour every last one of them. Once the threat hits, the swarm plummets toward the ground, slamming down like a skyful of needles. Mabel's earth magic golem, Honey, is getting crushed by the chaos, and Charlotte snaps that even with the two of them fighting side by side, they can't hold it back anymore, leaving them with no choice but. A swarm of vicious insects tore the golem apart, and the girls groaned under the brutal pressure of the assault. Gamma decides to yank out the dragon arrow, this legendary monster slayer built to drop mountains, and he fires it straight at the demon insect just gets in the way and eats the hit, leaving Charlotte stunned because his best move didn't even land. The demon sneers at them, saying wingless little lower life forms like them aren't even worth licking the dirt off its boots. Gamma snaps at Mabel and Charlotte to get back right now, insisting he can tell this particular one is on a whole other level. Then he spots the horrifying truth. Somehow the creature isn't even breathing. It's basically drowning everything in killing intent, but Gamma can't shake the thought. What if this thing isn't alive at all? He refuses to let the mystery slow him down. He lines up his next shot through the sight and pins the demon dead in his crosshairs as the arrow cuts through the night air, screaming straight toward its target on the roof. Oscar finally fires a round from his rifle, and boom! It crashes into the demon insect with a thunderous blast, but the creature barely even budges. Gamma whips around in pure disbelief. There's Oscar, and Oscar just shrugs it off, waving like, "Sorry I'm late," and apologizing for finally showing up to the party. Malik keeps his gaze locked on the roof, trying to read if that shot even mattered, while he snaps at Oscar to stay locked onto the target. The demon's skin is so tough it might as well be forged in steel, and some swear it's right up there with Kamui iron, making it nearly impossible to pierce. Malik stares in shock as the shot truly lands, leaving a real mark, and the demon's perfection cracks, because even it looks genuinely stunned at that tiny scratch. Oscar flashes a cocky grin, tells the demon it better learn its place, and drags the monster down with nothing but brutal words, calling it a lower life form. He whips his arms around like a lunatic and roars at the top of his lungs, begging the demon to lock onto him. Only him. Malik straight up admits that one more hit in that spot would have shattered it for good, then drops the bomb. That was their final custom round. He glances at Gamma, shoots out an apology for demanding the impossible, and says he and Oscar are switching to bait. Anything to buy Gamma the time they need. And it all boils down to this. Gamma has to land a flawless shot straight into that tiny crack from across the battlefield. The building takes a brutal hit, everything starts ripping apart, and as rubble rockets through the air, someone nearby shrieks for the captain, over and over, while chaos swallows the street and Mabel looks totally done for, clutching her head like her brain is sparking, while Charlotte just exhales and tells her to stop playing reckless roulette before she goes looking for her. Staring up at the giant ice wall she just hurled out, she laughs that she's only relieved she got that shield up in time, right before the whole place collapsed. Malik is already peering through the scope, locking in his next move. He tells Oscar he's done with waiting, because he'd rather be out there tagging the enemy than stuck hiding. So he rockets into the air, roaring as he unleashes his super knuckle attack, so fast he's nothing but a blur, smashing the monster with every last ounce of power yet. But that demon insect doesn't even flinch, just taunts them, asking if they honestly think a move like that could work. Then the order hits. Gamma is finally told to go, and Charlotte glares with pure disgust, lining up those monster hordes with the nasty bugs you'd find squirming in a filthy sewer. She yells to Mabel like, "I've got it." And the second Mabel S on it, the girl hauls up a giant chunk of earth and says she'll bury the ground for good so none of those monsters can ever crawl out again, leaving. Gamma dove onto the front lines, arrows clenched in his grip, eyes locked on the target. He fuses everything he's got, pouring the raw might of the dragon arrow into his star arrow. Then he shoves it all into one single, jaw-dropping shot. Gamma clamps down harder as power flares in glowing bursts. Then he snaps, "I'm going to turn everything into one blazing arrow of light." And he fires straight for the sky, and it's crystal clear. Touch his friends and you're dead. He's going to hunt every last one down, cornering them in his path until only he remains, standing dead center in the wreckage with the final strike already lined up. That beam of light finally fires, slicing through the air with insane force and blasting the entire area wide open in brightness. Mabel, Charlotte, and Malik can only stare, wordless, as the attack's sheer scale hits them like a punch, each of them frozen in complete shock. A brutal blast slams straight into the giant insect's head, rockets the massive beast backward, and smashes it hard into the rubble. The monster is totally baffled, eyes wide, mind racing, because 1 second it's standing and the next it's sprawled flat on its back like, wait, what just happened? Artemis stares at the wreckage with a cold, intense expression, wondering, did that archer really pull this off all by himself? Gamma doesn't let a single heartbeat pass. He's locked in tight, raising his bow again like the next shot is already hunting him for the final strike lands. No way the monster can accept it's actually losing, right as that arrow punches straight through its head. Inside the monster's head, the pilot is spiraling, wrecked by the fact that it's getting crushed by one single guy, and that realization is breaking him. And the thought of failing right here would be a full-blown shame to the entire clan, because the pilot is stuck inside the cockpit, panicking and realizing that if this unit gets wiped out for real, that's basically curtains. Because if they fail, it means its own demon insect king will step in and kill it for daring to be weak. Down on the ground, Gamma looks stone calm, and he tells everyone he's already banked enough data from this fight, armor weight, how fast it moves, so he's ready too. So yeah, he already clocked the monster's next play. It's gonna whip those wings out, bolt into the sky, and try to pull a fast one. And just like he figured, the monster rockets off. Malik watches it disappear and screams, calling out the coward for trying to bolt, but Mama isn't worried one bit. He just tips his head to the sky, because he's already clocked every trick the enemy tried. Right there he vows, no matter how far those demon insects scatter, he'll track every last one down, shoulder to shoulder with the teammates he actually trusts. A brutal beam of light rips across the sky and smashes the monster to bits, and just as it's over, Gamma shouts the guy's name, declaring he's officially part of the Walnut Squad. A blazing beam of light lances up into the night sky right over the castle, and every person in town freezes mid-step, staring at it as if their world just stopped. And then everyone starts whispering like they know something's up. One guy swears the light is blasting straight from the castle, while another nearby goes, "Nah, could it be fireworks?" Back at the inn, Mart just slouches around, puffs out smoke, and radiates this nasty, bad-tempered energy like he's about to snap as he steps onto the balcony, stares down at the town, and grumbles that everyone's being way too loud tonight. Then he spins back inside, and there's Kaswan, going absolutely feral, laughing his head off while a girl sits in his lap, acting like nothing else matters. Tensions are going through the roof between them right in the middle of the room. So Mard finally snaps. He whips around and demands Kaswan what the hell they're doing for real, but Kaswan just stares back like, "What do you mean?" Kaswan and the jokes that they're just leveling up their friendship with a teammate, plus that hard insistence that he's definitely not worshipping anyone. The red-haired girl in the corner just shoots Mard a look and flat out tells him to do whatever he wants, and Mard doesn't even bother answering. He turns and storms right back out, leaving. He slips out onto the balcony again, stares at the city lights, and can't stop thinking about how that Deku guy got crushed to death by a volcanic turtle. Mard hears the shouting, whips his head toward the balcony, and spots guards below yelling that they finally caught him. The guards whip their heads up, shout his name, and confirm he's the leader of the Twilight Dragons. Like that, everything clicks into place and the truth hits hard. Mard was fuming and snapped, "What are the royal guards doing here this late?" Then warned them, "If you want to talk to someone important like me, come back later." The guards don't waste a second. They slam the news that Queen Hestia wants him arrested, then bark, "Drag him out right now." A massive ruckus erupts as Mard snaps and screams, begging them to let him go while they haul him away down the quiet streets. On a nearby rooftop, a shadowy figure crouches under the moon, staring down at the chaos like it's unfolding for him. And just then, the mysterious figure blurted into a device, voice shaking, because Yusrika of all people lost to a human and her machine was stolen. The figure tells the person on the other end, "I'll call you back," then says it like a threat, because they've just stumbled onto a brand new test subject to toy with. They stand over the wreckage, stuck in stunned silence, realizing the human race is way more fascinating than it ever should be. Because somehow this keeps happening. Every single person is born with a job, a special power handed down to them straight from the heavens. The figure tells him, if you land a job like a swordsman or a hunter, your weapon skills kick in instantly. You're basically a master from day one. But there's way more to it. Because beyond the job, every single person gets a role they're born to fill, like they're living pieces in a bigger story. Turns out this dude's got a special mandate called *****, and it cranks his stamina up to unreal, superhuman levels, as long as he keeps stewing in bitterness and burning jealousy toward everyone else. The mysterious figure clocks the guy's insane strength, and decides he's the perfect target to endure their upcoming experiments. The story snaps over to the Kingdom of God's towering castle walls, where moonlight spills beneath a crescent moon, and right there, everything changes. Gamma freezes outside as someone yells his name. Then he whips around and spots the rest of the group charging toward him. Mabel strides up with a bright smile and tells him she's just beyond grateful that they both made it through everything safe. Malik the squirrel pops up beside Oscar, hands out a few props, and tells the two of them they absolutely crushed it out there. Raphael suddenly cuts into the conversation, pops a refill anyone, like it's nothing, then checks on everyone, and right as you think that's it, she barrels straight into Mabel's space and demands to know if anything weird happened, and Mabel practically jolts, because Raphael admits she'd been seriously worried about her. Raphael pulls Mabel into a tight hug and tells her straight up to take care of herself. Even the tiniest scratch demands attention and care. Mabel flashes a grateful smile, but then she strides up to the group and tells them, loud and clear, that they've got nothing left to worry about. She just freezes in place for a beat, her face deadly serious, like something heavy is weighing on her mind. Charlotte catches it and fires back, asking if she's still stuck on that old incident, because she insists it's ancient history already, and that's that. And she's convinced Mabel will be fine, because Gamma and the whole squad are watching her back. Oscar tries to get Raphael to look at his wounds, but she just laughs it off and he snaps back at him for lying, because not a single mark shows up on him, so the whole act collapses and he blurts out. She tells him, how'd it go? And before he can even blink, she admits she cast a spell to stop the party guests from losing their minds. Artemis strides up to the fountain, and with a bright smile she tells everyone, you all did an amazing job, you've kept everyone safe, and I'm genuinely relieved. Then her voice flips. She dives into the nightmare of demon insects and what it means for the Empire. Artemis' heart sinks as she realizes she has to sit Gamma down and lay out every detail. So, later on, Gamma and Mabel finally get some quiet time, kicking back with the Firebird and Malik, just vibing together. 10 years ago, everything flipped the moment those wild insectoid demons crashed into the Empire. Back then, the soldiers barely managed to push them back, but the villages were already crushed. Everything was falling apart, and it all came down to, and because of all that, the government cracked down hard, creating special squads like the Walnut Squad to hunt the bugs and study them for good, keeping them locked under the Queen's personal command after the Empire slapped a full gag order on the whole fiasco. The next day finally arrives, and the whole crew can breathe a little easier, at least for a moment, so everybody crowds in for one massive feast, and right when they're done eating, someone blurts out, yeah, let's make another toast. The red-haired girl pumps up the group, lifts her mug high, and roars that they nailed it today with cheers, while Gamma, Mabel, and the whole squad pile in, clinking their drinks together like they just survived the final boss, celebrating that they actually made it through. Mabel lifts her drink, tells Gamma he absolutely crushed it today, and Gamma nods and admits it was a solid day's work. But he can't stop staring at how wildly different she looks in casual clothes. She raises her mug to the sky and asks what he's craving for dinner, like, what's it gonna be? And Mabel points out that because he showed up in his uniform at the welcome party, seeing him in regular gear hits totally different, in the best way. She catches him staring and demands to know what's wrong, but he trips over his words, blurting it's nothing. So they both scan the huge spread. And while he tries to act totally chill, she drops a few vibes that make it feel suspicious as hell. Right then, Mabel yells out to someone as a brand new woman steps into the group, and Gamma snaps his head up, totally blindsided. Charlotte strides in wearing a fancy dress, then thrusts a bowl of food into everyone's hands while Mabel makes sure she gets a proper thank you. Gamma doesn't skip a second and tells Charlotte she looks just as stunning as ever, which leads to a tense, quiet standoff where she keeps staring him down, and he just can't move, frozen in place. Charlotte breaks into a soft laugh, and Gamma just freezes on the spot. He can't process it, like he's never seen her smile in his life. Raphael's voice suddenly slices through the air, all bright-eyed as she stares at the food and declares it looks delicious, then demands a serving, then she leans in with a dazzling smile, and just like that, the whole group's vibe flips as she slides in for dinner. Game on. Gamma catches himself thinking Artemis is the modest kind, especially when you stack her up against Raphael, who's always charging in like pure aggression. Malik yanks him back to reality by smacking him with his tail, and Gamma jerks in panic, because he'd been completely lost in his own head. The squirrel presses him, asking if he's really sure. Then Gamma just stares back, totally lost, and demands, "What do you mean?" And that sparks everything, leading to Malik steps in and jolts him with the reminder about that huge offer, especially the part where he turned down King and Princess Hestia. Gamma's mind snaps back to the day he was summoned to the palace. Royals lined up to thank him, and he swallowed his pride as he apologized for the mess his old party left behind. They basically chased him down and begged him to stay in the kingdom, even promising him a noble title, until they basically drawn it out. And just when you think it can't get wilder, they asked, right there, if he'd marry Hestia, and the princess herself practically blurted that she was completely on board, all because he saved her home. Deep in that memory, Hestia is totally gone, blushing hard as she looks Gamma in the eye and declares, no jokes, that she's ready to give him her body and her soul. Gamma's suddenly all flustered, scrambling for the right words, and he blurts out that yeah, this is a massive honor, but he's already locked onto a new place where he finally feels like he truly belongs. He thinks of the Walnut Squad, looks at her, and finally says it. He's got comrades he can trust, so he's made up his mind. He's staying there and living his life. He's begging to stay with the squad in Magica's empire, just to Gamma snipe. Meanwhile, Hestia is left gaping, completely stunned. Right back in the present, Malik is completely losing it. This squirrel is sobbing, saying Gamma's story has him choked up. Malky's finally snapped. He ditched noble status and the princess's fiancé title just to stay in his squad, and Gamma hurried in trying to brush it off like it wasn't a big deal. Oscar lunges in, hooks an arm around him, and laughs as he blurts that he knew Gamma would pick them, and that their bond is basically unbreakable now. Gamma looks wiped out by the whole rush, especially when someone screams. Everybody starts celebrating, because the captain's footing the bill. The guys start yelling about drinking like tomorrow doesn't exist, and while the chaos rages, Gamma just wants Oscar off his back so he can finally breathe. Malik reclines and tells Charlotte to slap the entire tab on the company's expense account, basically making. Charlotte stares at the captain's handiwork and realizes how painfully cheap he's being. Then she moves her focus right to the table. Artemis strides in like she owns the night, offers to cover the bill for everyone, and tells the crowd to drop their worries and just chow down and enjoy the food. Gamma peers at her and asks, "So you're really telling me it's okay for someone like you to make it all the way to the castle town?" Artemis just breaks into a giggle and tells him, straight up, that she honestly loves coming to town undercover like this and men. It goes to show that she's always heading out for walks or slipping into shopping trips with Mabel. Mabel blurts out that Artemis is completely obsessed with clothes, so she's basically glued to the local tailors all the time. Artemis straight up admits she's the one picking the uniforms for the Walnut Squad, and Charlotte can't help thinking the new design is a little too bold for her taste. Artemis won't stop and quips, "So, is it cute?" She admits she went all in on the newest noble fashion, thin fabric, because apparently that's what they call art. Mabel whips around to Gamma and asks if he doesn't agree to leave, and Gamma looks totally stressed. He only manages a weak little nod. Gamma tries to hype Artemis up, telling her the outfit looks amazing, but then he fumbles and confesses he's struggling, because he has no idea where to look. Raphael clocks his reaction and teases him nonstop like, "Come on, these outfits might be just a bit too much for a guy like you to handle." Mabel shrugs and calls nobles a straight-up weird bunch, and Gamma just takes a drink and shoots back, "You really think that?" Artemis shrugs off the whole thing, says she picks her own outfits no matter what, then tells Gamma, "If you're picturing a specific look, just let me know." And that's when he just breaks into a nervous laugh. Mabel glances over and tells Gamma, "You know, you were honestly really cool during that monster attack," and the whole mood shifts. She pushes forward, still marveling at how he wiped out that enemy in one clean hit. It's honestly unreal. Gamma shoots back, asking if she really believes that, then quickly downplays it, claiming he only managed it because everyone else was there, lending a hand. Charlotte steps forward and declares Mabel is right, telling him she owes him everything. because without his grit, she honestly doubts they'd have made it. Gamma's jaw drops at the praise pouring out of Charlotte, and before he can even get a word out of his mouth, the girls swarm him with attention. Charlotte pushes a drink into his hands, and Artemis dangles food as a reward for him. Artemis thrusts a piece of food toward Gamma and tells him to open wide, but he just freezes, cheeks burning, totally flustered by the sudden move. She keeps trying to shove food into his hands, but Charlotte snaps at them to stop, and Mabel fires back Gamma. S going to get totally overwhelmed if this keeps going. Artemis clocks Mabel's reaction, and Raphael immediately pushes. Like, is she just putting on an act because she's jealous? And that hits Mabel like a lightning strike as she panics and scrambles to deny it all. Charlotte throws caution to the wind, while they're finally relaxing, and blurts out that she's been craving a real heart-to-heart with Gamma for ages. Artemis clocks how vicious Charlotte's being today, but Charlotte just shrugs it off like, we're off duty so it doesn't matter. Raphael nods, swears she'll jump right in and pamper Gamma herself. Then she scoops him into a full-on hug, leaving Mabel staring at them like she just saw the impossible. Oscar barrels in and quizzes the girls on what they're doing, flashing that grin and reminding them, there's a handsome guy right there like him. The whole crew freezes mid-task, then stares at him with the coldest, most deadpan, totally unimpressed faces you could ever imagine. Like making. Charlotte bursts the quiet by saying, just ignore him and keep eating. And instantly, everyone snapped back to laughing and enjoying the night. Raphael keeps yanking Gamma in closer and closer, while Mabel lunges in, shouting at Gamma to ditch that side and come over to hers. Raphael bursts out laughing and tells Gamma that shyness is just how he is. But Malik cuts in and says it's time to grow up and face reality. Boom. The party's basically over. As the city lights blaze in the night, the whole crew starts tying things up. Everyone nods like, all right, we're done, and finally heads home to stay safe. Charlotte steps forward and vows that she and Oscar will get Artemis back home. Then Mabel turns to Gamma and asks, can you walk with me? Charlotte blurts out that she has no choice but to take the captain back herself, and the second Malik hears it, panic hits hard as he stares, confused like, what is her deal? And what's really going on with that strange vibe? When the rest of the crew splits off, Gamma turns to Mabel and asks if they're gonna move too, and Mabel's like, yeah, let's go. As they head down the road, Gamma can't shake it. He keeps replaying how he spent the entire day just staring at Mabel and the other girls in their normal outfits. He can't stop replaying the fact that Charlotte and Raphael were basically feeding him earlier, and now it's messing with his head in the strongest way. He looks down, and guilt crashes over him like a tidal wave, because he just realized he hasn't followed a single rule his hunter clan drilled into him. He clings to those old hunter lessons. Don't beg for praise, stay ice calm, and wait for the exact moment to strike. But he finally mutters out an apology to his own people for giving in to his selfish desires, and Mabel's left totally baffled as she blurts, wait, what are you talking about? Mabel waves off Gamma's confusion like it's nothing, then grabs his attention and tells him to hold out his hand so she can give him something special. She slips a tiny lucky charm into his palm, and then it hits him. It's Gamma leans in and stares right at the tiny bird, then blurts out, wait, is that thing supposed to be a phoenix? Mabel points out that with muscles like his, he probably doesn't even need a charm, because even the captain pretty much said the same thing. But she can't stop worrying, because the Walnut Squad keeps charging into one death-defying mission after another. Gamma gives her a soft smile and whispers thanks, swearing he'll hold onto that gift forever. The Kingdom of Gate is dead quiet at night, but outside its walls, trouble is already roaring. Somewhere across the city, Mard is groaning through the pain, battered in cuts and bruises, looking absolutely wrecked. He looks like he crawled out of hell, muttering that the queen was playing innocent, sweet-talking everything like it was just a nightmare. Turns out Princess Hestia is the one behind the beatdown. She snaps at the guys that ever since they exiled Gamma, he's been dumped into Magica's family's clutches, and she's never going to let them off the hook for it. Mard is cracking in his cell, cursing under his breath because nothing's gone his way lately. Then a sharp clink from the bars snaps his attention, and he cuts himself off mid-sentence, whips around over his shoulder with a completely lost face, just freezes for a second, then blurts out, "Wait, what's actually happening?" As he spots that heavy lock just lying there on the floor, wide open, and his brain short-circuits, staring at it like, is this real? Is the door seriously unlocked? So the nerves crash over him, and he can't stop thinking this has to be some twisted trap. He stares at his shackled feet, and even if it's a setup, anything is better than rotting in that room. He snarls, yanks the bars, and hurls the door wide with full-body force, screaming that he's not dying in a dump like this. Not today. In a shadowy, neon-choked megacity, insect-like monsters streak through the sky, whipping past towering giants of steel. Inside one of the buildings, someone leans over and asks Yusrika what she's staring at on the screen, and another guy pops in just to mock her, saying it's a total masterpiece that she's watching the hunter trash her mech. Yusrika snaps on the spot, whirls around, and tells the guy to shut his mouth, right now. Right then, a shadowy figure slips into the room, grumbling that everyone's being too loud, then demanding to know what the big deal even is. Turns out the guy's named Dorafura, and he claims Yusrika's just sobbing because her unit got smashed. Then he decides he'll be the one to go out this time, so he can have a little fun and deal with that hunter himself. Yusrika's superior tells her to do whatever she wants, so she caves instantly, then blurts that she's honestly stunned he's letting her walk away that easily. A guy from the demon insect tribe named George leans in with a dead-cold, creepy stare, grinning like he's finally uncovered something far more fun to mess with. One of the other insect soldiers looks totally stumped and blurts, "George, did you really find a human who's stronger than a hunter?" George stares at the screen with Gamma's silhouette and snaps that the kid isn't strong. He's just relentlessly stubborn, and that claim instantly kills the soldier's interest because he can't stand weaklings. The soldier calls George a total weirdo as he storms away, and George just shrugs, "Suit yourself," because he's absolutely doing things his way. He grabs the console, and as soon as he figures it out, he grins and says, "All right, then we're launching his unit right now." A hulking mechanical insect machine jerks into gear, grinding loud, as it readies itself to launch into the mission. That giant metal bug rockets into the sky, tearing across the open land at breakneck speed. Meanwhile, over at the towering stronghold of Magica's empire, everything feels eerily calm. Mabel bursts in wearing a maid outfit, checks on Gamma and Charlotte after their workout, praises their training like a proud big sister, then asks if they want the pudding she just made. Charlotte tells Mabel thanks, says she's ready to dig in, and Mabel insists she should eat as much as she wants, making sure. Everyone chows down on the Gamma, raves that the food is amazing, then turns to Mabel and asks if she bakes all the time. She smiles and says cooking is just a hobby, and right then, things kick off. Oscar Wilder struts in and proudly announces he's finally back from his examiner job. Charlotte cheers him on, but something's off. But Oscar's clearly wiped out, saying the practical exam dragged on way longer than he ever expected. Then Charlotte leans in, asking if he found someone talented, and Oscar. So Oscar starts explaining everything, but his face screams, I feel this in my head," like the whole mess is giving him a headache. He says the girl kept strutting around like she was some legendary S-class badass, so he figured this was gonna be a real fight. But it turns out she was so weak it was almost hilarious. Yet she still refused to back down, barking that she deserved the highest rank, which meant Oscar kept smashing her down until she finally broke and gave up, while Gamma just stood there staring, convinced this dude was low-key terrifying. Charlotte demands her real rank, and Oscar shrugs. He literally threw that girl straight into C rank because, since every C ranker around there is a complete weirdo, he's even worried she might not be able to keep up with them. Oscar digs into his meal, then tells Gamma that being an examiner couldn't have been easy, while Gamma checks everything over and spots the. Mabel pipes up and says she saved a plate for Oscar too, and Oscar jumps at it. "I'd gladly take it," like it's only just the start. That's exactly what he counted on from her. Gamma jumps in, asks if S rank is the Empire's top seat, and Oscar lays it out. It's mostly a to see, but wait, there are only a few special S rank units, and he makes it a point to brag that every single one of the Walnut Squad is S rank. Oscar adds that there's an ultra-rare great rank that only pops up every so often. Gamma can't believe it, but Oscar locks eyes with him and demands why he's acting like that ranking stuff isn't his problem. Then he tells Gamma that, since they're basically brothers, going for S rank is totally realistic. Oscar bursts into laughter and goes, He's been an examiner for years, yet this is the first time he's ever laid eyes on talent this brutal. Gamma just shrugs and goes, yeah, I guess. But he pulls Oscar aside and goes, come on, this is hilarious. He's calling him precious now, even after Oscar had 2 pistols jammed to his head earlier. Oscar snaps back, asking if he's still mad, and then he just keeps talking. Gamma finally lets it go, and then he admits he hasn't seen a kid this strong in ages, so he got way too hyped and couldn't hold back. Gamma finally caves in and tells everyone he'll hand over his share of the pudding. Right after he says that, Mabel can't stop wondering where Raphael vanished to, and Charlotte admits she didn't just wander off. She sent him to fetch Richter, because she still hasn't gotten the chance. Gamma hasn't even heard of the guy yet, because the name means nothing to her. So Charlotte has to break it down. Richter's a shadow collaborator for their squad, and he spends his life sealed inside a lab. Artemis shoots a quick apology for making him wait, but Raphael finally storms in, grumbling about the effort it took to haul him out. The newcomer locks eyes with Mabel and can't stop thinking about how sweet she smells. Then Mabel says, it's been a while, and Charlotte steps in to officially introduce Richter to Gamma as their lead scientist, even though Gamma freezes, stunned by how tiny the McKin Squad captain is in person, and all she can manage is, it's nice to meet you. But the second he starts to introduce himself, Richter shrugs it off and strides right past him, silent as a shadow, straight for the snacks. Mabel just shrugs and laughs, calling herself a total sucker for sweets, then passes over the entire plate like, here, take it. Richter looks like she just hit heaven, she goes. That sugar is basically lighting up my soul, and nothing in the world tops a real dessert. But then it hits her. She's being rude, and she shoots off a quick apology, then finally introduces herself as Richter, while Mabel points out that the guy she just brushed off is Gamma Snive. Artemis spots that Gamma looks totally swamped, so she jumps in and lays out the quick explanation to steady them. She finally makes it click for him. Richter isn't just some name. She's a scientist and the captain of the McKin Squad, the one who builds the specialized gear like the bullets they used to wipe out those magic insects the other day. Gamma finally gets it. She's the real deal, and because she's such a pro, he straight up asks Richter if it's possible to get his arrows upgraded too. And it looks like Richter finally starts paying attention to him. She shoots him a question, so you're really a bow user? And then she wastes zero time and she orders him to cough up the weapon, claiming she needs to inspect it for reference. And Gamma doesn't even hesitate as he hands it over. But the second she snatches it, Richter freezes, because she's never laid eyes on material like this, so she blurts out, what is this even made of? And then Gamma blurts out that her grandpa just called it an elven bow, then swears the old tales say forest fairies forged it, which it really lights a fire under Richter's scientist brain. She tells him to give her a moment, and Gamma backs her up like, I'm counting on you. She just turns and strolls off, leaving him frozen there, completely baffled. Gamma catches Richter staring and asks what's wrong, but Richter just stares right back. Gamma's got no answer, because she only says she's hooked by how he looks and she practically drags him into her plan, telling Gamma he's gotta show up at her lab next, because she's determined to examine every single inch of his body. Gamma's totally blindsided, stammering what that even means while Raphael goads Mabel, smirking that she's getting jealous, but Mabel brushes it off, pointing out that Richter looks like he's taken a real shine to the kid. Richter turns to leave and tells Gamma, don't worry, I've got you. Gamma's still rattled, but he forces a steady voice and admits he's actually excited to team up. Then the story pivots straight to the Magica Empire's C-rank garrison, an enormous industrial fortress that dwarfs everything in its path, where Murd is already settling in like he owns the place. Then he glances at the nearby soldiers and spots rookie Oscar, the one they'd been talking about, so big. Then Gatto, all smiles, steps forward and introduces himself, but Murd couldn't care less. He just fires back with a cold grunt. Then, and he flashes that S-rank badge like a warning flare, straight up telling everyone he's not here to play nice with a bunch of C-rank losers, and that he's leaving He stormed off, leaving the other soldiers whispering that he'd got a trash attitude. Then one of them tossed out that the rumor about Myrd being a branded criminal is spreading back in. But the red-haired girl in the hood shrugs it off, criminal or not. She only cares that he's strong and fights for the Empire. And apparently, they don't have a problem with that at all. Murd's fuming as he hears what the soldiers say about Oscar, a total narcissist, while he can't believe anyone would ever confuse him with some lowly C-rank adventurer. Nearby, a headband-wearing soldier corners his buddies and hisses, "Watch your mouths, Lord Oscar matters in this country." But one of them won't let it slide, sneering that Oscar only strutted up the social ladder through connections. And then But Godot shuts that conversation down right away, saying he doubts it for one big reason. The Empire is a meritocracy. Prove you're good, or you don't rise, So he whips around to Murd and lays it all out. He doesn't care what Murd's life was like before this. He tells him straight up that money and connections mean nothing here, and if Murd wants to survive, he'd better remember that. While the red-haired girl fires off a rumor about a specific member of the Oscar's Walnut Squad, the headband soldier cuts in. Yep, he's heard it too. And now everyone's freaking out over just how ridiculously strong this brand new S-ranker is. Leaving He's absolutely buzzing. He says he's on his way to meet that legendary warrior at least once, just to find out what all the hype is about. But the girl snaps the truth into him. Regular soldiers like them would never even brush the chance of meeting someone at that level. Still, he refuses to quit. He swears he'll power up like crazy just to force that dream to happen one day, and then Godot just cackles at the kid's wild enthusiasm, tells him to keep that same fire blazing, and not a single second to waste on training, then brushes it off and moves on. Then Godot strides over, slaps Myrd on the back hard, and snaps that all talk stops now. Put that swagger to work and start climbing the ranks for real. But Myrd hits the breaking point. He slams the hand away, growling that the Walnut Squad means nothing to him at all, because he's ready to unleash his power, crush everyone in his way, and snatch the top spot for himself. Myrd cracks his knuckles with pure ego, claiming he's the only one who deserves the praise, and daring anyone to get in his way. Out of nowhere, the base loudspeakers screamed out orders. Every C-rank guerrilla unit from squads A through G had to report in, while the announcer blares that an S-rank monster in the Cesnoa forest has sent every local creature into a frenzy. He orders the lower-rank squads to shove civilians to safety and sweep up the weak monsters. But Gamma whips his gaze over his shoulder, seething. He's sure this whole detour is a waste, stuck babysitting small fry like them. Inside the command center, Princess Artemis clamps one arm around Malik as she confirms every backup request has been fired off to all teams from S-rank down to C. And she snaps at the squad that this mission is going to crush them, but they still have to guard the country no matter what. Charlotte locks in a serious stare, then softly calls out Gamma's name to snap his attention back. She tells him it's finally go time, to test the new technique she just finished, and Gamma snaps a sharp nod, swearing he's ready. As the group heads out, Mabel leans in and fires off. So what's this technique all about? Gamma says he spent the whole morning training with Charlotte, and Oscar can't help cracking a joke about how his brother takes everything way too seriously. The squad finally storms into North Point B. Mabel straightens her hat, Charlotte lights up a cigarette, and just like that, they steel themselves for the demon insect swarm. Charlotte snaps her gaze to Gamma as he kneels in the dirt, and demands a straight status report on what's coming next. So, Gamma slaps a hand to his head, forcing his energy into focus. And as a key member of the Walnut Squad, he has to become everyone's eyes as he slams his hawk's eye skill on, then stares out over the Cessnoa forest, sweeping across the tree line like he's hunting something. Until he spots a colossal horde of monsters sprinting straight for the Empire, and suddenly it's pure chaos. Dragons barreling in, giant worms thrashing forward, and Charlotte suddenly realizes, just like before, that a swarm of winged insects is yanking the strings and steering the entire group. She says they probably won't even have to break out their best skills, and that sparks Mabel so hard she's ready to grab the lead. So Mabel tells the group she's going to twist the very ground to trap every monster in one spot. Gamma snaps that's a massive help since the enemy count has exploded compared to before, but he doesn't flinch. He's sure they can survive it. He's ready to unleash his star arrows, blasting everything that's still standing into chaos, and then the two snap into action. Mabel bends the earth to her will, while Gamma launches his arrows from the top of the cliff. Far off in the distance, Godot catches the noise and realizes the S-Rank squad finally kicked off their big battle. Murd's jaw drops as the overwhelming power explodes in front of him, and a colossal pillar of light crashes into the forest, and the whole crew just stands there, stunned, like, what the hell is happening right now? A voice abruptly screeches through the loudspeaker, blasting the news that the crackdown on Point B is officially over. And right after that, the speaker declares that Gamma Snipe is sweeping up the remaining enemies. Murd just freezes beside his teammate, mind totally blank as everything he's hearing right now just doesn't compute as that name, Gamma, keeps hammering in his head, and suddenly he can't stop questioning his entire world. He can't shake the feeling that it has to be someone else. How did this guy end up here in this country? And why did he just shoot up to an S-Rank out of nowhere? His face tightens as he glares forward, frustration blazing over the news, like it just snapped something in him. But Gato snarls from right behind him. Hey, stop zoning out and start watching where you're standing. Murd snaps, shut it, and slams his axe forward. And now his mind is set on one thing. He's going to prove he can take down these monsters solo. From out of the trees, a whole pack of those dark wolf monsters explodes into the open, charging straight at them. And Gato lunges forward and smashes one right in the face with his shield, snapping at Murd that his rookie lone wolf act does nothing for him. The woman jumps in with the others, snapping that everything's gotten way heavier now, because Murd won't stop playing hero solo. She keeps talking, insisting, no joke, that it's honestly a miracle he even survived long enough to get this far. And then as soon as the headband guy steps in, he starts mocking him, saying he only ended up here because he couldn't survive anywhere else. The guy labels Murd as total dead weight, and that insult makes Murd snap on the spot as he erupts with a scream right back at them. The swordsman snaps at everyone to let it go, straight up warning them that losing focus like this is the fastest route to getting killed. Back with the other group, Mabel lights up, flashes Gamma a huge grin, and tells him he absolutely crushed it out there. Gamma keeps it cool, brushing off the whole mess like it was a breeze. Then he cuts himself off because of what happened with Mabel, but Charlotte declares the new plan. Oscar will snipe the last targets while Gamma switches Hawkeye on and hunts down the insects. A violent explosion rips through the distant trees, and then, when Gamma sees the smoke curl upward, he freezes in pure disbelief, baffled like, what the hell even was that? He jolts as it clicks. Malik and Oscar are right smack in the center of the whole mess. So he launches into a sprint straight at the danger, while Mabel shouts his name from right behind him. Malik is frantically shaking Oscar awake, but Oscar looks wrecked, half-conscious at best. Oscar finally forces his eyes open, and the second they do, he knows everything going off the rails right now. Malik is still yelling for him to get up when Gamma finally bursts into the clearing and catches up to them. Staring at his burnt, mangled arm, Oscar forces out an apology to Gamma and admits he can't even fire his gun anymore. Gamma looks rattled and blurts, "Are you okay?" But Oscar keeps his eyes locked on the bigger picture and says, "It's like the enemy, S been reading their minds, like they studied every move and fight pattern the whole time. Dorofura lets out a thunderous shout and proves Oscar right, bursting into a gigantic brand new mechanical form that looks like it crawled straight out of a nightmare. And then the machine's central eye snaps to life, glowing with brutal, tear-your-soul energy. Gamma snatches Oscar and Davies out of harm's way just as a monstrous beam hits, obliterating the ground and vaporizing it on the spot. But he snaps back fast, drops into a fighting stance, and stares the monster down like it owes him answers, while Dorofura watches from behind that creepy mask. The demon admits he's been poring over footage from their last massive brawl. Gamma can't even process that it's all been captured. Dorofura just shrugs it off and laughs. Then he needles Gamma, asking if he wants the exact play-by-play of how this fight's gonna unfold. He leans in and lays it out. This whole plan hinges on firing the gun to smash the armor, so the arrow can land the final blow. The giant machine taunts Gamma to step up and rip its body open, warning that if he doesn't move fast, it's going to strike first. Gamma stares at the towering legs ahead and knows it's over, because that monster can only be hurt by Oscar's gun, and Oscar's gun is busted and useless right now. He's yanked back at the last second, as a massive metal arm crashes into the dirt where he was standing. Gamma barely gets out of the way, as the machine's massive metal leg smashes the ground right beside him. He keeps searching for him, then casually rips into a clean mid-air flip, just to put distance between them and the giant insect. The demon starts ripping the forest open with blazing energy beams, and Gamma has no choice. He sprints for cover, ducks and stays low. He realizes this thing moves legs faster than any insect demon he's ever faced, and he forces himself to stay cool, figuring out where its heart is, until the next second shatters his focus. But then something else starts gnawing at him, because even with the monster right in front of his eyes, he can't feel a single trace of life force coming off it. And just as that realization hits, as he's still trying to figure out why, a voice from his past suddenly rips through the air and shouts his name. It's his old mentor, Genkoji, popping up in his memory and urging him to shut everything out and listen, because this time it matters. An old man's face hardens as he braces to unload hard-earned wisdom on his foster son. Genkoji leans in and tells the younger Gamma, "You can't trust what you see in this world, because if you want to climb to the top as a hunter, your eyes and ears have to be insanely sharper than everyone else's. No exceptions." Genkoji's voice kept hammering in his head. Top hunters don't just stare, they dig deep and read between the lines. Because if you understand how your enemy thinks, you're the only one who can spot what's really hidden before it's too late. Gamma keeps moving, refusing to cling to old ideas, and his mentor's voice keeps hammering one message in his head: use your mind's eye to cut through the lies. Right as it. Then it finally hits Gamma like a spark. He spots the trick just in time, silently thanking the old man for the lesson after nearly screwing up the fight, and he whips around. He rushes to Charlotte and tells her it's finally time to unleash that exact technique they've been holding back, and she just nods, locked in, fully ready. As Gamma starts hoarding an insane amount of power, Dorofura watches it surge and just chuckles like it's nothing, telling them to throw everything they've got. Gamma shrugs off the trash talk. He steps in tight, moves to Charlotte's rhythm like they're one, and matches his breath to hers, because he knows this has to be flawless, so he clenches tighter and tighter, pouring every last ounce of focus into that single, unstoppable moment. Their powers finally snap into perfect sync, fusing into one unstoppable synthesis. With the prep finally done, a bright crest flares on Gamma's hand, and they both shout, "Now we end this." The duo hurls a massive, swirling blast of energy, and it rips through the forest in one blazing, light-drenched shockwave. Charlotte thrusts forward, yells the name of their combo, **the absolute zero coffin arrow **. And finally, with Gamma, they unleash everything they've got. So Gamma snaps the arrow loose, and the power behind it is unreal. It blasts through the sky, tearing into a storm of razor-sharp energy shards that slam onto Dorofura out there. The blast slams straight into Dorofura's face, shattering his mask like glass. And before he can even react, Ice rushes in and takes him over. Turns out, if Gamma fires his arrow and Charlotte hammers it with ice magic, they unleash a top-tier spell that freezes whatever it hits and seals it away for good. Gamma just stands there, staring at the giant block of ice they pulled off. But he's not celebrating yet, because something about the whole thing still feels dangerously wrong. He snaps at the whole group to shut up and listen, because he can't feel that guy's presence anymore, just like it did in their last fight with these things. He starts piecing it all together, admits it's just a wild guess for now, but his gut tells him these insectoids are up to something meant to keep them hidden. The story snaps away from that icy forest and drops straight into a shadowy mountain. Later, the crew finally cranks through and reaches the imperial capital, Carter leading the way as they thunder past the city's gigantic main gates. As they finally take a break and sit down together, Gamma leans in and calls out to Raphael to get her attention. She only flashes him a warm, friendly smile. Raphael glances at the group and tells them Oscar's going to be fine. He's just passed out, sleeping it off, and she says he missed every critical spot. Good news is she already bandaged the burns, so he should be awake any minute, and that lifts Gamma's spirits a little. Malik suddenly speaks up from the side, telling the group that the guy they've been stressing over isn't as soft as he looks. Godot just stands there, heavy-faced, staring into the past like it's still haunting him. He tells Gamma, "I've been through this exact kind of disaster once, rushing in alone, ignoring everyone and Gamma's eyes snap wide as he spots Gado's bandaged arm, or what's left of it, and the truth hits him hard. This is the cost of his mistake. Gado finally admits that for ages, he'd been absolutely furious with himself, because he always ended up being the one who needed saving. Under the moonlight, Gado finally cracks it. This is exactly when he realizes the true shape of his limits. Gamma stares down, visibly rattled, as Gado leans in and asks if he doesn't know his own limits better than anyone else. Because leaving, Gado strides off into the dark, tells Gamma, "I hope I can learn to accept my own weakness too," and disappears into the night. Godo keeps striding forward, firing off question after question, and demands Gamma finally admit the truth, that he's actually weak. Gamma pauses for a heartbeat, then says, "Yeah, once I had someone in my life who told me the truth straight to my face, but Then he barrels right back in, asking Gado if he's got someone like that, then shoots a quick confession that he's alone too. Gado just nods like, "Yeah, I get it." Gamma just stands there, jaw clenched, pure frustration and razor-sharp focus blazing across his face. Flashback. A younger Murd stands over a pile of monsters, and when his friend asks if he's all right, he snaps back, while warning Gamma not to go off and do anything extra. Your friend's like, if Murd's really sure he's okay, then fine. But then he grabs the brakes and says, "Still, don't drive yourself this hard." He grins at Murd and promises he's always there to help, and Murd immediately snaps back that he's totally fine. So quit worrying him like that. Right in that exact moment, an axe slices through the air and Murd just sits there, realizing, way too late, that his thoughts are coming far too late to matter. He finally sees it. He's been leaning on Gamma's kindness the whole time, just so he wouldn't have to face how pathetic it feels to keep getting rescued. Murd craned his neck at the towering crystal-covered monster, and the truth finally hit him. He wasn't weak because he couldn't be. He was jealous of Gamma's insane strength. Mard sits alone on a fallen log, crushing his axe in his hands as one thought burns in his head. He just needs to get stronger. He locks into a hard stare, silently craving the kind of power that could let him blow past everyone else. Out of nowhere, a voice snaps into the air and challenges him. What's the point of being strong if it doesn't mean anything? Mard jerks in panic, spins around and freezes, because some strange figure just materialized behind him, and it hits him like a sucker punch. He blurts out, "Who the hell are you?" And the dark figure just chuckles, saying he's not here to fight, he's here to scout him. The stranger leans in, dressed like a shadow, and whispers that strength is nothing more than a spark that dies fast, which sends Mard reeling backward, snapping his hand to his weapon as he scrambles to keep distance between them. He just stands there, flat out telling everyone that humans are doomed to die, and that anything that won't last forever is basically worthless. He thrusts his hand forward and tells Mard, "If you want power that badly, I'll give it to you," then leans in with a catch. Mard just stands there, totally clueless, while the guy turns to him and asks if he'll help out with some research. The stranger leans in and tells Mard, "I'm not just curious, I'm after you because of your destiny," and the shock on Mard's face screams, "What?" like he's completely thrown off everything that's happening. He tells him to take a breather and really think it through, because he's definitely not the kind of guy who shoves his will on people like everyone else does. He shoves a weird black object into Mard's hands, then turns and vanishes, leaving Mard frozen in the woods, staring at the gift. He's trapped inside his own thoughts, until a booming voice suddenly erupts and yanks him straight back to reality. It's his buddies from the crew shouting for the rookie, telling him dinner's ready and calling out like, "Where the heck have you been?" Mard goes silent for a beat, staring at the item in his hand, trying to piece together what the heck that whole encounter was even supposed to mean. But as he shuffles with the crowd, he clenches his teeth and promises himself, once he finally gets strong, he'll never have to feel this miserable ever. So he refuses to ever feel that weak again. Because even when people swear he's not a burden, it still gnaws at his soul and drives him to chase power even harder. The story swings over to a lakeside town, built for S-rank soldiers, where they train hard and kick back for vacation. Gamma and the whole Walnut squad burst into the facility, looking totally relaxed, then snap into gear, dressed down and raring to start training. Raphael fires up before the session, tells Gamma it's time to move, and Gamma nods like, "Yeah," and grabs his bow, ready to lock in a synthesis attack while the rest of the crew hangs back near the waterfall, waiting. Charlotte and Mabel keep a sharp watch on them from the sidelines, while Raphael, acting as the squad's medic, takes charge right now, leading the team through this totally bizarre training. Gamma shuts his eyes tight and funnels everything he's got into Raphael, picturing his spirit sliding through the air to lock in the timing. Then, Raphael bursts into giggles at him, spots the fear written all over his face, and reassures him that he has nothing to worry about. She tells Gamma this is her bread and butter, that she knows the whole process better than anyone. Then she orders him to relax, drop every bit of control, and let her handle every inch of his body, and it makes everything hit way harder. She swears she'll be gentle, but Gamma is completely out of his depth, and the moment he realizes what she's really doing, he spirals into full-blown. Over by the trees, Charlotte spots Gamma totally losing focus. He's shouting in the background while Raphael clings to him, and the whole thing turns into a massive scene. Mabel's face twists with doubt as she asks, "So this is really how you train for a composite arrow?" But Charlotte doesn't even blink, she just shoots back, "Yes, and that's exactly what's happening. They've got to sink their hearts before they fire the shot. No masks, no hiding. Just show who they truly are, and their bond is supposed to explode into something way stronger, even if it looks." Charlotte makes it sound like pure chaos to everyone else, then says she spent time digging into the mechanics of Gamma's fairy bow, tracking exactly how this method makes it work. Richter just stands there, toothpick clenched between her teeth, bragging about the old book she dug up. Then she drops the bombshell. Among the elves, there's a legendary secret art that only ignites when two people truly connect their hearts. She's genuinely blown away that Charlotte even knows something that obscure. Charlotte just sits there and listens as Richter walks past. And the reason she's got all that knowledge is actually pretty straightforward. Turns out Charlotte's got elven blood running through her veins, so she's grown up on legends about composite arrows. Then she tells us Gamma was hunting for a smarter way to wipe out the demon insects, and they figured this one was worth a try. She praises Gamma like crazy, saying they nailed the technique so quickly because he's born with the gift of adapting to anything new. And on top of that, Her bond with his elven bow is pure magic, but here's the brutal catch with this training. Charlotte locks eyes with Gamma, who's obviously fighting for control, and tells him that bonding with Raphael on an emotional level is going to be a nightmare, even for him. She spills a massive secret. Raphael isn't just human at all. She's a half-demon succubus, and her whole mission is slinking into men's dreams to drain their energy and desires, which it makes this training way more dangerous than it looks. Charlotte snaps that unless a guy's a complete romance pro, he'll never be able to crack open his heart for a girl like her. It's like a full-on sensory attack on Gamma. This level of stimulation is so intense he can't keep his cool for even a second. Mabel finally clocks what's going on, why the training is so chaotic, and why Gamma is unraveling. Then she realizes it all clicks, but Charlotte still isn't finished. She flashes back to their school days and admits Gamma was always the top guy every girl had her eyes on. Yet somehow, even with all that fame, he's still clearly way out of his depth here. Mabel takes a breath to let it all sink in, and then realizes it's a huge relief. Gamma is barely experienced with girls, and Charlotte just stands there, staring like she can't believe what she's seeing. She kept her gaze locked on the conversation, like she could see every secret piece of the story happening behind the scenes. Charlotte tries to coach Gamma. Breathe, slow down, and treat your partner like a person, not just a woman. But Gamma only stammers out a reply. Later on, Gamma and Oscar head to the hot springs to unwind. And when Oscar sighs about how the warm water melts every last bit of his stress, Gamma just nods along and soaks too. Gamma can't believe how insanely nice the whole facility is, and he flat out admits it, while Oscar shrugs it off and laughs as they soak in the bath. Turns out this place was made for training, but Charlotte snaps. It's also a recovery base, with pools and hot springs the whole squad can use, and Gamma's absolutely blown away by the setup, but Oscar pivots the conversation and asks how the composite arrow training is going. Right then, Gamma snaps awake, because this is finally his shot to ask Oscar for the exact help he needs. He blurts it out and goes, "Oscar, tell me, are you loaded with romance experience?" Oscar just stays there in the water dead quiet, staring like a total dead battery. He asks Gamma why on earth he dropped something like that out of nowhere. Gamma starts flailing his hands, panicked, and blames Charlotte. She was the one who pushed the idea. He even insists that mastering romance might be the only real way to connect with Raphael. Oscar just lets out a slow nod as the heat wraps them up, repeating that Gamma wants to connect hearts. Then he bursts into laughter and blurts out, "I never imagined Gamma would show up to me for love advice." He barrels on, telling Gamma that being his senior means he's actually glad to lend a hand, while Gamma just grumbles that the guy is being nothing but a nuisance. Even Malik squeezed into his tiny tub, glancing around like something's off, muttering that this whole mess feels way too weird, and it sure as hell wasn't supposed to happen. So the squirrel snaps, "Why am I even stuck with you guys?" And Oscar just shrugs and admits he'd rather be anywhere near the ladies' bath. Gamma is about to blurt the question. Then a voice cuts through the steaming air and freezes him in his tracks. Artemis steps out wrapped in a towel, asking if she just heard Gamma's voice. And the moment he hears it, it leaves him absolutely stunned as she stands there with Mabel and Raphael, and all three of them freeze, just as stunned as the guys who just ran into them. Gamma blurts out, "What are the professor and everyone doing here?" And they tell him they just slipped in from the women's side. Turns out those two baths are linked. Gamma starts to lose control, blurts out an apology, and promises he'll get out of their way right now, while the girls just stand there, staring as he scrambles. Raphael stays totally cool, even saying she doesn't mind if they all just bathe together. Malik lights up and practically jumps for joy, while Gamma just stands there looking. Charlotte gets thrown into the chaos, snaps into action, and reminds the captain this training camp has a purpose, so he doesn't walk away with the wrong idea. Keeping things. Malik finally relents and agrees, because the real mission isn't the talk at all. It's getting everyone locked in on their own training. sharpening their skills until their composite arrows hit harder than ever. But this chill vibe is wrecking Gamma. Raphael cracks up, says she always overdoes it, then turns serious and tells Gamma to hang on because he can tell she looks pretty rough, and Gamma tries to put a stop to it, telling Richter she can't just splash around in the hot spring like it's no big deal. But the director whips her head back, totally baffled, and snaps that he was the one who'd said they weren't allowed to wear swimsuits in the first place. Then she spots that Mabel's not wearing a thing either, and it slams into Gamma all at once, the realization hitting like a freight train. And the moment he fully snaps, his face turns beet red. Right then, out in the background, someone bursts into screaming madness about losing their towel, which is the final straw for the guy. Gamma face plants into the water and passes out from pure heat and stress, while Raphael panics and blurts, "What happened to you?" Soon they finally tumble out of the bath, dripping and awake. Then Richter bursts in, right as they're dressed, and hands him a cup of water to help him shake off the fog and clear his head. Mabel swings by to check on Gamma, says Oscar told her it's his first time at a hot spring, and asks how he's doing, and he's left staring at the world like, "Did the heat finally push me past my limit?" Gamma laughs it off and shoots an apology right after, grinning that he's just relieved they actually stuck to the part where he gets dizzy from the heat. But Mabel tells him, "Stop beating yourself up. You're the one always saving me, so let me save you for a change." Gamma just freezes, totally thrown off by how dead serious she is. So he thanks her and tells her she's way too kind. Then Mabel just beams, saying she's thrilled to help him out. She glances away for a split second, and this gentle, almost tender softness washes over her face. Then she finally cracks, telling you about her past, how monsters descended on her when she was just a tiny kid, even though she can't remember it herself. The truth is this: people from the Empire burst in and saved her back then, and that's why she's all in now, pushing herself in the Walnut Squad, because she finally wants to be the one who's useful to someone else. Mabel tells everyone that since someone saved her back then, she's dying to help others who are trapped in trouble now. But Gamma drops a line like, "I think you're already doing more than enough for the Empire," and Mabel can't help wondering, does he really mean it? He snatches a drink, then tells her point blank how she's always there, ready to give him the boost he needs the second he hits rock bottom. He thanks her for always fretting over him and stepping in to help him out like this. Mabel murmurs his name so softly it barely breathes, and then she locks eyes with him. Those intense, glowing eyes don't move an inch. Then she scoots in close, cheeks flushing hard, while Gamma just freezes, completely blindsided. Right when things finally turn serious, Oscar and Raphael burst in through the door. Oscar immediately goes, "So, do you just see me as a sister?" And Raphael snaps back, calling him cold like, "Quit playing games, you ca." Oscar's apology cuts the vibe to pieces, and Mabel just awkwardly scrambles to cover the interruption like nothing happened. She snaps into full panic, blurts out a rushed goodnight and bolts out of the room, while Raphael grabs Gamma and fires off. "So you're really okay with her just running off?" Gamma forces himself to stay calm and insists they were only talking, until Oscar pushes, asking if it was a love confession, and Gamma snaps back that it definitely wasn't anything like that. Artemis breaks down what she just heard, Gamma and Mabel mulling over old memories, then letting gratitude hit hard. But Gamma drops this bombshell. "It's always been like that since she was a little kid." Artemis leans in and demands to know if he heard it straight from Mabel, especially the part about that monster attack from years ago. Gamma wears a sharp, thoughtful look and confirms they really were just talking about that exact thing. Artemis drops the bombshell that Mabel's desperate to repay the Empire person who saved her life, and she decides it's finally time to spill the truth, leaving Gamma utterly baffled. She tells him that even though Mabel calls it a monster, the thing that attacked her wasn't one at all, at least, not in the way everyone thinks. Meanwhile, the tale whips over to the kingdom of God, and under the moonlight where, inside the palace, someone leans in and quizzes Coswine. "So, did anything good happen to you today?" Coswine just shrugs it off with a grin, boasting that he's out there non-stop, stacking good deeds like trophies. A girl pants through the words, eyes blazing with pure annoyance, snapping, "I'm not talking about that at all." She's visibly shaken, firing off the question of whether they've really been captured. But Kaswan just shuts her down with a calm, "Relax. Everything's already handled." Kaswan's eyes go wild as he rants that the moment he hands the princess what she wants, he's free. Then he practically brags about how he's even been promised a noble title just for using the Twilight Dragon name. He glares down at Castori, watching her sob and squirm, then leans in with a chilling smile and promises she'll be his first wife. While all hell is about to break loose, Gamma stands frozen, trying to make sense of it all. Did Princess Hestia really feel that way? And how on earth is a guy like this getting that much favor? In a palace flashback, Princess Hestia locks eyes with Kaswanen and snaps that he's just as guilty as everyone else for letting Mard get out of control. Kaswanen sprawls face down on the floor, guards pressed in with swords to his throat as he sobs, begging Hestia to spare him. Yet Hestia doesn't even spare him a glance, coldly saying she couldn't care less. She's stuck in regret over exiling Gamma, replaying it in her head, desperate to imagine a world where he's not even there. Spotting an opening, Kaswan snaps, asking if she wants Gamma brought back. And when she yells that of course she does, he grins and tells her to drop it all in his hands. The princess is totally caught off guard, so she pays the price of one, doubles down immediately, and insists Gamma is her perfect friend because she swears he's got the perfect plan. Kaswanen yanks Castori's hair tight in his fist, talking his plan like it's set in stone, snapping that he wanted Gamma gone because that kid's justice instincts are way too sharp, and he knows Gamma will eventually sniff out his dirty deals and blow the whole thing up, even if Gamma is S-class material. He just couldn't stand the guy. He spits out Gamma's name like poison, snarling that he's a total country bumpkin, way too close to an idiot like Mard, and it gnaws at him that someone like that actually got into the princess's good graces. But it only makes it. But as soon as he starts thinking, this nasty, sweaty look crawls across his face, like he can't help it. Then he snaps to it. Even if he despises the guy, he'll still twist that connection to the princess and use it to score his own payday. Then he snaps his focus back to Castori. She's so out of it she's just sitting there with a pipe in her mouth, so he leans in and demands, "How much longer are you gonna stay like that?" and orders her to hurry up and serve him, even dragging up the threat that he'll yank her spot as his second wife. And all she can manage is a blank, dazed answer. Meanwhile, that hooded girl from the party looks absolutely wrecked, clutching her head like it's splitting, staring at the mess that's become her life. She just wants to claw things back to how they were. Right back at Magica's border, things are escalating fast. Wyverns swarm the sky over the castle walls, and down on the ground the soldiers keep asking where Mard and Gamma vanished to the moment they're needed most. The defense is cracking. Leaders are screaming at the C-rank squads to surge up and back the B-ranks, while everyone fights with shaking hands, desperate to keep the monsters from smashing through and crossing into their territory. And Maud is right in the middle of it, gripping his weapon so tight his stress practically shows. He snaps at the other soldiers that this time the enemies are way tougher than usual, and if they don't stay locked in, they won't make it out alive. The whole battlefield erupts into a disaster zone. Arrows slam from the sky, soldiers drop left and right, and the monsters rip straight through the defenses while the guys on the ground fight tooth and nail to keep the line standing. Then the scene flips to Gamma and Mabel, both locked in, weapons drawn, eyes sharp for the fight as Gamma fires the signal and it's go time. Mabel strolls up with Gamma and asks if she handled things all right, and Gamma just gives her a quick, simple nod while Charlotte watches them like it's nothing, because those two are perfectly in sync. Gamma finally spills it to Mabel. Her magic is actually good, and Mabel absolutely snaps with joy, cheering like she just got the real praise she's been waiting for from him. And Richter loiters nearby, lollipop in hand, and stares at the combined composite arrow Gamma results Mabel cooked up. Then she snaps into analysis of the shot. She stared at the adamantite arrow as it punched a clean hole right through that demon bug fragment, And damn, those findings are way crazier than anything she expected to find, especially Mabel's earth magic and Gamma's raw power got fused into something so refined it punched straight through a monster's shell. Richter calls it magnificent, and Mabel can only freeze, laugh awkwardly, and stammer. Mabel admits the move still feels a little shaky, but she's thrilled it worked. Then Charlotte jumps in, saying landing it on the first try is a massive deal. Raphael bursts in and wraps Mabel in a huge hug, praising her non-stop, and Mabel can't help smiling as she thanks her, feeling proud and awesome after the whole training session as the Gamma just watches the squad kick back, and there's Oscar standing front and center grinning like crazy, while Captain Malik casually lounges on top of his head like it's the most normal thing in the world. The story snaps back from training to Magica's border, and grim shadows loom over the castle walls beneath a cold, gray sky. Because the soldiers are locked in the middle of a brutal brawl, they unleash a thunderous volley of crossbow bolts. Watch as those arrows rip straight through the monsters swarming overhead. A wyvern tears straight through the defensive line, clamps onto a soldier in its jaws, and his squad watches in dead silence, horror swallowing them whole. Gazing up at the sky, I see dozens more monsters pouring over the castle walls, circling like sharks, hunting for the perfect opening, and then the base intercom blares to life, demanding the C-rank mobile unit rush in. Because this situation has officially gone off the rails. Orders blare through the speakers. Wipe out every monster that slipped past the border, so Mard clenches his spear, pissed off that they're just tidying up the mess the higher-ranked teams left behind, and he snaps at the others that it's time to move. He shouts that snagging the enemies the B-rank guys slipped past is exactly their job, so they charge forward together as one. As one soldier hurls a massive shield straight into the wyvern's face, driving it back hard enough to stun the beast, and the rest of the squad surges right behind him. Gado's locked on like a predator as the archer draws back his bowstring, ready to end this. Gado drops the monster right in front of them, and as he looms over the body, one of the soldiers blurts out, "So, did we really get it?" But the archer suddenly spots it and screams at Gado. One of the monsters has slipped through their line and is barreling straight for the rear. A soldier screams that the rear guard is basically just supply staff, so the defense is paper thin. Artemis clocks it. Jubei's unit is right there, and the moment the danger hits, Mard's face crumples with shock. Mard clicks his tongue, steamrolling with frustration as he rants about every single problem. This chaos is dropping on them. One of the soldiers manages to get out only a few words before Mard explodes into shouting orders, snapping the rookie to move. The whole squad swears they're right on Godot's heels as Artemis shouts his name, everyone charging forward, like there's no time left. He stared up at the sky. More monsters were piling onto the fortress walls, and everything was getting worse by the second. Mard sprints into the smoke, shouting Juby's name, praying he's still alive. He finally reached the main building of the rear base. Everything felt so eerily quiet it was like the whole place was holding its breath. Mard can't process it. He looks down and the ground is littered with corpses, while monsters swarm everywhere, leaving. He got yanked out of the moment, left staring as that monster devoured them, finally realizing he'd missed his chance to save them. Marge just stands there, totally frozen, as he watches a massive black bird peck at the body lying on the ground. His skin turns ghost pale in an instant, and his eyes blow wide as the truth finally slams into him. Scavenger birds burst into the sky, snatching up every last scrap they could find and vanishing into the clouds. He snaps completely, throws his head back, and howls in total despair as tears and sweat cascade down his face. He keeps insisting there was nothing he could have changed, but the fear that he waited too long gnaws at him non-stop. It hits him like a flashback to Deku, because right when he whips around, he catches the kid getting smashed by that volcanic turtle. Mard keeps yelling to anyone who will listen, "It's not my fault." But even as he tries to believe it, the damage shows and he looks completely shattered. Everything crumbles the moment things get serious, and he can't stop asking himself why he's so useless. And he blurts out, "Is this really where it ends?" like his last nerve is snapping right on the edge of his limit. Suddenly it hits him, his father's words slam back into his head. "Don't worry, just hand it all to me." Mart's mind snaps back to his academy days. He's standing there, shoulders tight, while his father leans in and says his graduation at the top of the class is already fixed, and his dad just keeps talking, claiming that as of today, he's the leader of the Twilight Dragon, then hits the kid with, "If you're not strong enough, don't panic. Just use money to buy the power you need." Memories slam back into him, his father grilling him about that tavern brawl with his friends, then making it crystal clear. Nobody humiliated his son and got to walk away. He leans in and tells Mard that their family rules the noble world, and he swears that if anyone dares oppose him, he'll cut them off and crush their trade. No exceptions. Back in the present, Mard locks eyes on his own hand sprawled on the ground. Then it hits him. His dad handed him everything, the money, the grades, the status. So what's left for him, really? It makes total sense. He can't even handle one thing on his own anymore. So he collapses into tears, choking out the truth and admitting that the real him is just some pathetic nobody with terrible grades who never. Oliver truly craved a life of lies, sure. He strutted around like a big shot with those medals, but deep down he just wanted to be real strong. And now he's sprawled on the ground, screaming as scavenger birds tear into the sky above him. His axe is gone, and he's totally defenseless. Birds swarm and start pecking his face and eyes, and he's frozen in place while they tear into him. Names and messy scribbles slam through his head as he lies there drenched in blood and tears, completely shattered and finished. A black tool hurtles through the air, drilling straight toward a fresh heap of dark ink splattered across the ground. Gamma leans on the railing beneath a thin moon, eyes locked on the dark water as the whole world goes silent around him. And he stares at his own hand, replaying what Mabel said, "A monster." Artemis shuts it down fast, snapping that it's actually a demon insect tribe member, and it's wild to realize Mabel was on their radar once upon a time. Artemis' voice drops as she admits the attack was so brutal the Walnut Squad's medic had to rush in. And then, worse, they sealed away every last one of Mabel's memories about it. So she could finally live a normal life, free from that kind of trauma ever again. She says it's terrifying to watch those demon insects crawl back after 10 years, and now the entire squad is on edge. Because if Mabel starts remembering what happened, the game is. But Gamma isn't panicking. He brings up Raphael, the one who took over that memory technique, and tells everyone she's certain the seal won't just snap on its own. Artemis nods in agreement, stunned that Mabel has zero idea she was even attacked by those creatures in the first place. Or it was like her mind got scrubbed clean, erasing the worst moments of her life. She tells her straight up that they've been watching her from a distance, then turns to Gamma and begs, can he and his crew keep an eye on her too? Artemis nods in agreement, and Gamma makes it crystal clear. Mabel is a treasured comrade to every single one of them. Clutching Fenio in his hand, he snarls that he'll never let that insect tribe lay a finger on the girl. A hard, focused glare flashes in his eyes, because deep down, he knows it's him who's got to step up. A demon insect's mask explodes in his mind, shattering into brutal pieces, like it's right in front of him as he tells Artemis. He vows he'll protect Mabel no matter what blows in. Artemis locks eyes with him, flashes a tender smile and swears to him she'll do the exact same. Later, right on Magica's Empire training grounds, the morning sun is finally blazing across the targets. Gamma is already planted in his Walnut Squad tracksuit, leaning over the gear and double-checking everything like it's go time. And he couldn't stop thinking about how to cash in everything he learned at camp right now. So today, he's set to go all out from the very first second. Right then, Oscar bursts in, slaps himself against the wall, and demands why Gamma is out here training this early. Gamma shot a look over and demanded, "You with the Imperial Army?" Oscar jumped in like, "Good morning," and then asked if he was the Gamma from the Walnut Squad. Oscar drops a bombshell. Rumors are flying through the entire military that there's a hunter out there So insanely skilled it's basically unreal. Gamma just stares down, instantly rejecting it. No way. You can't be serious, I still have a long way to go. Oscar breaks it down, he erased his own presence completely. So the fact that Gamma clocked him instantly, that's genuinely wild. And he raises a training weapon, daring Gamma to say yes to a quick sparring match. Gamma hammers the point into himself. It's just a match. And Oscar admits he's only curious about one thing, how truly good rookie Malik Trust really is. Gamma catches it the second he hears the guy say Malik's first name. And boom, he realizes this isn't some random grunt. This is a captain-level fighter, dragged in from a different unit. He finally exhales with real relief, because earlier he almost went too casual with that guy, and now he's dodged a bullet. Oscar snatches his gear and fires off that he'll be training with a rubber spear for this mission. Gamma nods as Oscar strides out to the center, promising he'll hang back just enough so neither of their weapons gets an unfair edge. Oscar shoots back a warm thank you for the concern, says the pleasure's his, and Gamma just freezes there, uncertain, like he doesn't know what to say next. Oscar pops up and introduces himself as Anti, then tells Gamma to just call him that name. He admits he's on a tight schedule, because his daughter throws a fit every single time he's late for the morning assembly. He gets into position, then leans in and tells Gamma, "All right, start the match." Oscar bursts forward like lightning, snapping his practice spear ahead in a blur of pure motion. And Gamma clocks instantly that this guy's intensity isn't just high. It's on a whole other level than anyone he's ever dealt with. The pressure is crushing, and Gamma can tell. He's definitely up against someone operating at a captain's level. He catches himself thinking, it's been forever since I sparred with a real person. And honestly, that rush feels brand new. Oscar drives in with a crushing thrust, but Gamma stays locked in and slips away just out of reach. Even with Oscar blasting off at crazy speed, Gamma doesn't break a sweat. No matter how fast they move, his eyes catch everything, crystal clear. Gamma's eyes are glued to every tiny shift, just like Oscar's stare, and the way his muscles twitch beneath the surface. It's like he can read the future. He clocks exactly where that spear is headed before it even leaves the air. Oscar refuses to back off, but Gamma whips through the air like a blur, staying a step ahead of every single thrust. And even while Oscar sprints forward with a stone-cold serious face, every punch just keeps slipping out of reach. He can't land a single clean hit. Gamma doesn't flinch. He dodges the spearhead's whistle like it's a dance step, slipping away from every strike. He starts flashing those insane reflexes, and you can literally see the captain finally react. Oscar flashes that smirk and declares it's finally time to stop playing around, get serious, right as his body's finally warmed up, and he tells Gamma, "All right, now I'm coming at you with everything I've got." Gamma plants his feet and grips his arrow like he's daring the world to try him. Knowing the real brawl is about to explode, he recalls how veteran warriors pour their energy into their bodies and turn themselves into something stronger. Oscar glances downward for a heartbeat, and every old tale from his clan crashes back into his mind. How back then people fought tooth and nail, backed by the exact blessings and jobs the gods handed them. Training gets abruptly chopped short the second a voice booms, "Good morning, Gamma." And then Artemis shows up with Malik perched on her shoulder and blurts that she's genuinely shocked, like super impressed, that he's training this early. Malik says he actually marched to the dorms to track him down, but the matron sent him this way. Then he clocks that someone else is already here. Oscar just throws out a casual wave, like nothing happened, and then blurts out, "Hey, completely different from the guy he was a second ago." And Malik drops to the ground instantly, slides forward in a bow, and belts out a booming "Good morning." Gamma just freezes in place, spiraling, asking why the captain's being so damn polite. Then convinced Oscar must be some top-tier executive straight out of a power-hungry fantasy. Artemis just glances over and blurts to her father, "What are you doing out there?" telling him he's not exactly a kid anymore and shouldn't go overboard, while Gamma just freezes, still trying to wrap her head around the fact that Oscar is actually her dad. Gamma stared at the guy and couldn't shake the thought that he didn't look a day past 30. And then but he snaps out of it fast, because the real gut punch is way bigger. This is actually Artemis' father. His eyes go wide as he stares. His mind snaps into place. Then he freezes, wondering what it all means right up until it finally slams into his head. He's been sparring with the Emperor himself this entire time, right here in the capital. Later in the palace, Gamma dropped to his knees, begging forgiveness for the disrespect earlier, but Oscar waved him off like, "Relax, asterisk, I'm the one who invited you in." Oscar fires off a heartfelt apology for the lie about his identity, admitting he only wanted to unlock Gamma's full potential. Then the moment hangs in the air as he trails off. And while Gamma nods like, "Yeah, that totally makes sense," Oscar cuts in, "Drop the whole formal act." So Artemis can't help but realize they're both a little too extra. All right, Oscar decides to stop playing around and uses the meeting to go full serious, dropping shocking news about the Insecta demon tribe. Then he broke down how the border guards kept sending terrified reports because a massive monster wave just suddenly slammed into their territory. The investigation revealed the real truth. These monsters weren't just attacking at random. Something far worse was already hot on their heels, driving them out of their own homes. Just then, right as everything's clicking into place, Imperial Intelligence drops a fresh report. They've spotted a gigantic hostile shadow lurking over the Ulfheim fairy realm. And Oscar looks at these two separate incidents and thinks, that insectoid demon tribe is finally making its massive move. Gamma asks, "You mean that forest by the edge of the Empire?" And Oscar just nods, like he already knows what's coming, and the conversation cuts off mid-breath. The fairy lands are revealed, where fairies live in a non-stop mana storm all year long, so brutal that if you don't have gear, you're dead in 10 minutes. Gamma can't stop himself. Why would the Empire abandon a place this terrifying and leave it all alone? Oscar keeps it straight, saying this place is a huge resource goldmine, and leaves G hanging in the dust. Gamma kept muttering the words to himself, like if he repeated them enough he'd finally wrap his head around the idea of a treasure trove. And Oscar backs it up, but he still warns him, the fairy realm is no playground. This area is one of the world's 4 biggest mysteries, right up there with the Abyss Forest and the Demon Realm, places humans can't truly grasp. But Oscar flips the script. Danger and treasure always travel together. So when Gamma asks if the whole realm is nothing but one giant stash, Oscar grins and tells him, "Yep, that's exactly what it is." Oscar breaks it down. The Empire didn't rise by luck. Its power surge is fueled by the resources it rips straight from the fairy realm. Even if it's a death trap out there, they'd never dare to lay a hand on that forest, because it's priceless to them. Malik listens closely, then fires back, asking if the demon insect tribe is showing up too, because they want the very same resources. The king's convinced that's the play, and after what he saw when Gamma battled earlier, he's got full confidence that he knows exactly what's coming next. But just as the talk heats up, a guard crashes into the room and shouts that the king is needed. The guard bursts in to report that the demon insect tribe has been spotted over Sector S, and they're streaking straight toward the capital, right for the kill. But the king doesn't even blink. He waves everyone down and calmly tells them, "Don't panic, don't worry, it's fine." He tells them the capital is sealed behind a special barrier, one that's fueled by the Holy Grail itself. He tells them the barrier doesn't just hold, it gets stronger the harder it's hit asterisk. So he snaps everyone to stay locked in and slide into their defensive positions. Malik tells Gamma that it's finally their turn to take action, and Gamma steps right up beside him, mission ready and locked in. Princess Hestia just stands there, wearing a calm, quiet smile like she knows exactly what's coming. She admits she totally botched the moment to hand Gamma his gift, and the king lets it slide, until he spots the badge clutched in her hand. Inside the box sat a top-tier piece of metal, and she snapped the truth out. She was about to officially hand Gamma the S-rank title right then and there. The king waves it off, telling her there's always a next time. Then his voice suddenly turns colder, like he's about to get serious as he says. 2. Telling Hestia that Gamma somehow looks just like someone from his past, and watching her get totally thrown off, because she has no clue who he means. He tells you about a legendary hero, an old friend of his, the very guy who saved the world and then placed the Holy Grail in his hands. Hestia finally snaps into focus. Wait, that has to be the very person her father used to brag about in stories all the time. The king staring at the ceiling, stunned that it's been decades since he's seen talent like that, an S-rank level, while Gamma and Malik thunder down the stairs, ready to bolt out. Meanwhile, back in the city, Mabel stands right in the street, soaking up the view like it's all hers. She's practically glowing when she catches sight of Gamma and beams a bright, cheerful good morning straight at him. Malik kicks off the morning by shooting Mabel a quick apology for waking her up too early, but she shrugs it off instantly, because right now, a mission is already in motion to handle the case before it slips away. Malik tilts his head up at Gamma and asks if he can tap into those hunter skills to track the targets, and Gamma just nods, then dives straight into it. He snaps on his hawk eye and locks his focus across the sprawling battlefield, scanning the distance like it's all laid out in front of him. Before long, he clocks them immediately. He swears he can feel 2 of their presences out there in the distance. He clocks it. These are the exact same demon insect tribe goons that attacked Jeed, and suddenly this hits way more personal. So, when Gamma tells Malik he's about to fire a composite arrow right where they're standing, Malik grins and yells, "Do it! No holding back, because that barrier will shield everything else." Gamma checks on Mabel and asks if she's ready, and she's absolutely buzzing, finally itching to show off everything they drilled during that training camp. High above the Magica's region, those demon insects are already swooping through the clouds, circling like they're hunting something. These things are basically flying tanks, fully armored, and they tear through the sky like they own it. Inside her ranks, Yusarika is firing off complaints about George's leadership, while her crew starts plotting to smash the Empire's barrier using nothing but raw numbers. George snapped, done messing around. He declared grabbing resources was beneath them, then pushed them to storm the capital instead. One of his men blurts out that Yusarika's new gear hits way harder than before, so taking over that place should be a cakewalk. George just breaks into laughter, and with that grin he's like, "It's finally time. I'm showing those lesser life forms exactly where they belong." These weirdos unleash tiny mechanical bugs that don't just end lives. They seize the bodies and take control. One of the pilots snaps, starts screaming that everyone should fear him, and then he dives straight into the attack. But George spots something in the corner of his vision, freezes mid-step, and instantly wonders what the heck is happening. Suddenly, a colossal blast tears across the sky and rips one of their flying machines apart into scrap. The pilot just freezes in pure disbelief, staring at his ride being deleted like his brain can't even catch up. Panic crashes through him as he screams for his senior, demanding to know what kind of monster would pull a stunt like that. George is trembling, shouting for everyone to get out, right now, because he knows exactly who's doing the shooting. A brutal explosion detonates across the enemy ranks as the hunter finally steps in, turning the whole battlefield into chaos. It's Gamma goes full power, firing a special adamantite arrow that Mabel's earth magic forges into a flawless weapon. Back with the squad, Malik's headset suddenly crackles with an update, and it sets everything in motion, and blasts the news that every demon insect in the sky just got wiped out, and Mabel can't even wrap her head around it. But she snatches Gamma's hands, buzzing out of her mind that they moved so perfectly together in the fight. Gamma stays humble and tells her straight up, he never could have cracked those shells without her magic helping him. He says he's not done yet. He wants to keep tweaking this move until it hits even harder, and Mabel's completely on board. Gamma locks eyes with her and vows that he'll make sure those monsters never get within reach of her again. Ever. Not even for a second. She just barely catches the end of his sentence. Mabel just flashes a smile and tells them to grind hard together, so they can link their hearts even tighter. Gamma blinks for a beat, and right as the scene slides into the quiet city streets, everything clicks. The story swings over to Carter's imperial capital. Jam-packed streets, towering stone buildings, and old-fashioned cars rumbling by as the whole city buzzes with life. In a C-rank squad tavern, Godot planted himself at the bar, lifted his glass high and shouted across the room like, "We're toasting Juby." Charlotte looks totally crushed, staring at her drink like it's the only thing keeping her grounded. She can't believe even Jube got taken out. She keeps insisting he used to be an A-rank soldier, and she can't stomach that he's really gone, because the memory of Gamma turning and walking away hits her all over again. Charlotte says the monsters vanished before the squad even arrived, and Godo just gulps his drink and snaps. She's right. She can't stop wondering who in the world could have wiped out monsters even Jubei couldn't take down. It makes zero sense to her how they got defeated. Godo blurts out that on that day they were so slammed with helping the wounded that they never got a real look at what was happening. And then he pauses. He shuts his eyes and snaps. The rookie did it. Gamma was the only one left at the scene. Godo admits that, at first, Gamma felt miles away, so distant and tough to crack that he started to worry the kid might never click with the group. He slams his drink down and tells Charlotte, when it gets real, Gamma's the kind of guy who actually delivers, no excuses. Back in the tavern, Godo whirls around and demands backup from the rookie on what he just said. But this C-rank soldier, Maud, just slumps there like a ghost, staring off, completely checked out, and not a single word comes out of him. Maud finally speaks up and admits he doesn't even remember it, so Godo just laughs it off and teases him like, "Are you getting shy?" The whole room snaps into a new mood when the soldier beside him finally speaks up, eyes clearly shaken as he admits he should have been more on top of things. He shuts his eyes in regret and admits it. If his Hawkeye had been sharper, Jube never would have paid with his life. Godot blurts out, "What am I even saying?" while Charlotte rushes in to soothe him, telling him he really gave it his all and that deep down those eyes are still human. That soldier keeps sobbing about how he failed, even with his hunter badge, and Gamma just locks eyes with him from across the room, like that silence is setting up the next twist. Then the room sinks into a heavy silence, because the thought of what it truly means to be a hunter hangs over everyone like a dark shadow. That title hits like a heavyweight, so heavy, some folks might not be able to stomach it. In the darkest shadows, a mysterious figure lurks and grumbles non-stop about how absolutely, painfully they hate hunters. In the dark, a mysterious figure hisses that they absolutely despise hunters. It's straight up creepy, and in this exact situation, they decide to use hunter as the secret keyword. They crowd in close to Maud, whispering that this one word is about to lock in a mental trigger. Then they press, "Are you ready or what?" Then they keep chanting, "Hunter," at him again and again, until it finally claws its way into his mind and won't let go. Back in the real world at the tavern, Maud groans loud, collapses onto the bar, and looks like he's dying. His drink splashes everywhere as he slumps there in agony. Godo clocks him struggling and teases, asking if the alcohol finally got to him, and Ma just grumbles that he's only a little out of it. Charlotte rushes in to help, snapping at him not to collapse on the floor, and asking straight up if he can even stand on his own when, suddenly, a giant, razor-sharp insect leg rips straight through the roof, and everyone panics and scrambles as the whole place starts getting smashed to pieces. The rest of the guys in the tavern can't even process it. They just freeze, jaws dropped, staring at the ceiling in pure, stunned disbelief. In the ruins outside, the monster looms over the rookie. Finally, whatever was trapping his mind snaps away. A colossal mechanical centipede monster hauls Maud high into the air, its segmented body yanking and stretching up into the night. His face twists into a creepy grin, and all the Maud can think is pure hate. He wants every human dead. But deep down, fear crushes him, because he can feel himself slipping, watching the person he used to be fade away for good. The tale snaps back to Carter's imperial capital, where the grand, shining buildings loom above grim, shadowy tunnels during the downfall. And it all feels like the city's holding its breath. And Maud lurks in the shadows, staring in horror as reality hits. He can't turn back into his human self anymore. He freezes and stares at the insect parts sprouting out of his uniform, trying to figure out what in the hell happened. Because somehow, he looks exactly like a monster now. He was drowning in desperation, trapped by enemies he couldn't escape, never once picturing his life would spiral into something like this. In a flashback, the Dark's voice crawls into Maud's head, saying it's been waiting for him to show up, and then it reveals the truth. A special door swings open for anyone who's hungry for power. That mysterious figure clocks that Maud is hanging on by a thread, then swears he'll get him back on his feet, no matter what it takes. Blood soaks him to the bone, he can barely stay upright. But Ma just nods like it's nothing and takes the deal. Mard jolts awake on a freezing lab table and demands George if he's the one who healed him. But George dodges the question with a slick, vague answer. He only did it because Mard is the perfect, priceless test subject for the research he's locked in on. George pulls him into the laboratory with a cheerful tone, then beams as he introduces himself as a scientist. Mard just stared in stunned silence as Mard's work was laid bare, studying monsters and even the fabric of space-time. George tells him to chill, because they're tucked into a secure hideout so cut off from the outside world that nothing can reach them. Since a full day here equals just 1 second back home, he tells Mard to kick back and get comfortable for a bit. Mard glances down, digs up the research George mentioned, and shrugs it off like he's got no intention of resting. He asked what he had to do to help, because he's ready to cooperate, just as long as he gets what he wants. With tears streaming down his face and pure desperation in his eyes, Mard throws himself at George, begging for power, real strength, the kind that can flip everything upside down. George just stares at him through that mask and snaps a comment that Mard is way too damn impatient. George agrees to grant Mard's wish, but before he does anything, he traps him under anesthesia for a long, brutal stretch. When Mard finally rips open his eyes, he finds a mechanical centipede fused inside him, and he bursts into non-stop screams. George leans in, greets him like it's nothing, then casually drops the bomb that the girl from before is now his partner. He tells her he slipped a special demon insect inside her to supercharge Mard's future and make it even stronger. Mard shouts at George from the table, and George fires back that he never breaks a promise, ever. So when Mard throws himself at him and begs for wings, George promises him straight up that he'll make it happen, no question. Suddenly, Mard grabs his head and groans. He can feel his body twisting into something new, even though he still doesn't have wings yet. And that's when a voice in his head, not his own, starts screaming, chanting about burning down everyone who ever mocked them or even bothered to hear his mate. George watches him wrestle with it, then tells him, that's not real anger, that's just the insect mucadin spitting hatred. So, he adds, stop fighting it and get along. Right before he starts spilling the truth about how the demon insect clan runs its whole society. George leans in and tells them this. In their world, wings aren't for everyone. Only the fighters who keep crushing it and winning at the Colosseum get to earn them. They get to serve the queen straight on, while everyone without wings gets slammed with non-stop discrimination. He goes on to say mucadin has the power, but it's been caged for far too long, and that's exactly why Mard steps in. When Mard fires back about the mandate, George smirks and tells him, your jealousy will save you, because that insect feels the exact same way. By fusing their bitter grudges, they jack the power up even higher. So George decides it's time to put its durability to the test. He explains the demon insect tribe can't survive outside, because a goddess shields humans. So he decides to fuse the two races together. He's betting that if the human side of the mix is strong enough, Marge can step out and handle the outside world just fine. Mard locks eyes with him, then finally growls, so what are you really planning to do with me? And George just calmly declares he'll forge the ultimate masterpiece by fusing humans with demons. He's tinkering with the experiment right now, and with a totally casual throwaway line, he admits every single attempt so far has crashed and burned. George jabs a finger at the glass tubes packed with failed experiments, tells Mard not to sweat it, and insists he'll never end up like those guys and he spells out this brutal truth. Even chopped into pieces, they still won't die, so before his mind snaps, he promises he'll drown Mard in pure, unstoppable hate. George just stares down at the scene, like it's the most fascinating thing he's ever seen, as he blurts out whether it's finally time to start the finishing touches that could unlock Mard's true potential. He points out the truth. Mard keeps shouting this hunter's name even though he's struggling to sleep, so everyone knows the guy Mard's jealous of is the hunter himself. A guy in a military uniform storms in, tosses out that his own crew is gunning for Gamma 2, and then swears up and down he doesn't care about him. George tells Mard to keep obsessing over that hunter, because if he stops, that jealousy is gonna cool off fast. And Maher backs the plan. So George grabs the moment and declares it's finally time to make it happen. He chooses the word hunter as the trigger, setting it up so that when it hits Mard's ears, something inside him flips and wakes up. Then he slips and calls Mard, Carter now, and orders him to scramble back inside the Holy Grail's barrier in the capital. George slams down his final command, demanding the thing snap back to its original form. As the guy's eye twitches, George drops a whisper, Hunter, and the whole plan clicks into place, but the guy only blurts out George's name as his. His mind curdles into pure hate. He snaps, screaming at the voices to get out of his head. He clamps both hands over his head, screaming through agony as the transformation destroys him from the inside out. Giant insect legs explode out of him, and it hits him. This wild power isn't what he asked for at all, and it's just getting worse, isn't it? Now it's hopeless. His eyes have already gone dead, and the monster fully takes him over. All Gamma can think about now is how badly he wants to rip him apart, and how his hatred burns hotter every second. Next, they head into the city, and at the Walnut Squad's S-rank dorm, everything looks perfectly normal. Mabel finally shows up and apologizes to Gamma for keeping him waiting. Then Gamma just flashes a simple good morning, like the moment instantly resets. The two of them roll out together. Gamma leans in and says he's counting on her all day, and she's like, "Bet I've got you." Mabel kicks it off by grilling Gamma. What in the world was he trying to buy today? Gamma digs out a note and says Oscar told him to grab something, but then pointed him toward Mabel. Only she looks totally confused, like she doesn't even know what's going on. The second she spots the paper, she clocks it as the manga Oscar always devours, and Gamma can't help wondering what a manga even is. Mabel clocks the way he means it, and she's like, yeah, they probably don't have stuff like that. So she starts spilling the truth. Magica's empire is packed with every kind of entertainment, and then she drops the best part. She's always hitting the movies with Artemis. She finally clocks it. Missions have been crushing them nonstop, and she hasn't even had a single moment to give him a real tour of the capital. Gamma just shrugs it off and admits, straight up, that he still has zero clue how this whole city is laid out. The two of them stride through the streets and press on toward a towering, locked-up entrance. Mabel can't believe it. The way this place is built feels completely alien compared to what he's used to back home. And then she drops the bombshell. Richter's grandfather wasn't just involved. He's the guy who built Carter, that massive city buried right under the imperial capital. Gamma lunges for the name Richter dropped, asking if it's the Jakari family. Mabel nods and says yeah, they're huge, the kind of famous inventors everybody talks about. Carter's city sprawls out under the capital, all stone bridges and streetlights burning bright like the place is alive. Mabel guides him through the roaring streets, showcasing every local landmark, while Gamma just trails behind, wide-eyed, soaking it all in. They finally burst into the bookstore and Gamma grabs a volume, then freezes, because this time it hits him. He's actually holding a real manga. Mabel glances at him and says, "We've already come this far, so let's not stop now. Come on, we're finishing this shopping trip." Next, they rush into a clothing shop, where Gamma starts digging through the racks and quietly weighs the idea of picking out a gift for his grandpa. He spots a beautiful floral fabric and immediately thinks Felissa would look absolutely stunning in it. Mabel's jaw drops when she hears the name. Then Gamma leans in and admits it's not a stranger at all. It's his little sister, and she's shocked she's just hearing that for the first time. Later on, the two sink into seats at an outdoor cafe to catch their breath, and Gamma blurts out how much he owes Mabel for all the help she's been giving him with his errands. Mabel just grins back while they clink their drinks, telling him she had the best time hanging out with him today. Mabel slides in with a grin and asks, "Wait, doesn't this feel kinda like a date?" She brushes it off fast, but the spark's already lit. Gamma absolutely shuts down the moment someone brings up a date, while Mabel blurts out that she's never actually been on one. She just spends her time hanging with Artemis or Raphael. That whole idea starts rattling around inside Gamma's skull, and he panics that if he overthinks his next move, he'll end up messing everything up. He looks totally stranded, and Mabel just shrugs and laughs it off, claiming she's in the exact same mess since she knows nothing about any of this either. She looks genuinely relieved. She lets out a shaky sigh as she watches him. Gamma clocks her energy and realizes they're both brand new to this, and Mabel's totally cool with that. They keep chatting away in the cafe, totally clueless as someone in the nearby bushes spies on them through binoculars. Oscar leans back and watches them, smirking that they look so fresh and innocent. And just as he's thinking it, Raphael speaks up from right behind him. She calls him out on it right away, and you can tell she's clocked the truth. He sent them on this shopping trip just so they'd finally get some alone time together. Oscar shoots her a tiny smirk, then plays dumb like it's all a total mystery to him. Malik leans on the sidelines, watching Gamma and Mabel like they've unlocked some old memories in his chest, and then Charlotte spots him lingering and snaps, "Seriously? Does the captain even have to be out here?" The squirrel shrugs and admits he dumped all the paperwork on her desk just so he could bail. Then Artemis catches him and snaps that he'll end up in a cage if he keeps pulling stunts like that. But Charlotte's thoughts are miles away, spinning on one question. Does that security barrier really stand a chance of keeping everyone out? While the Wristed District goes wild over a newspaper report about a tentacle monster, Richter snaps for Charlotte. She's got a second opinion to get, points at one specific bullet, and orders Charlotte to meet her at the lab. Right when they step inside, Richter proudly parades the gear like it's proof they're finally ready, convinced this loadout can blast those demon bugs to pieces. Then she opens her mouth to lay out everything. Charlotte barrels right in, asking what's really happening, because a private room invite usually screams classified secrets, and Richter just smirks, clearly blown away that Charlotte caught on that fast, and Charlotte fires back that this isn't some everyday thing. She's a shut-in after all, so Richter. He thrusts a file into her hands and says, "Look." Charlotte flips through the pages, frowning hard, then blurts, "What am I even supposed to see here?" Turns out, these are Gamma's ancient records, straight from when Richter was still analyzing his bow and pushing his physical limits. And as they march through the city, Richter tells us that when he zoomed in on the files, strange, jaw-dropping data started popping up like it had been hiding in plain sight. Mabel spots Gamma looking way too distracted, then snaps, "What's wrong?" He's just staring at those three crouched in the bushes like, "What in the world are you doing out here?" He clocks that Mabel hasn't noticed a single thing. Then his need to see his sister burns hotter by the second. So he shrugs and tells her it's nothing, just to keep it all casual. Something hits his brain out of nowhere while they're just sitting there. And then he grabs the gift they picked earlier, smiles, and decides he'll send it to his sister, right along with her allowance. Mabel remembers they're living apart for now and fires off a question. Does his little sister have any plans to come see him soon? Gamma tells her the real plan. He's going to get the Empire to set everything up, so he can finally bring her here and keep her by his side for good. Raphael chimes in, saying that sure, she gets sick fast, but in her newest letters, it finally sounds like the storm inside her is calming down. Mabel is praying she heals up fast, and Gamma's taking it easy, because Felissa's in the hands of the top Imperial medical team. Right then, Mabel thrusts a tiny box into Gamma's hands and blurts out that she's got a present for him too. Mabel grips the little gift tight and tells Gamma that helping out his family feels amazing. But he can't forget about his family, about taking care of himself too. She's convinced he's owed a little reward every once in a while, just for being himself. Gamma catches himself thinking, a true hunter doesn't chase praise. But he still blurts out thanks to her. Mabel just lets out a giggle and goes, I knew you'd say something like that, like she'd seen his mood coming a mile away. Right when everything finally feels calm, Gamma abruptly halts. His instincts scream that something's off, and he snaps his gaze upward. Stone screams crack through the air, and the moment they do, the whole city starts to shake like it's about to collapse. Mabel clocks the look on his face and blurts, What's wrong? But he can't even get the words out before the whole moment crashes into a giant mechanical centipede rockets through the city blocks out of nowhere, and everyone on the street slams to a stop, staring like, what the hell is that thing? It kicks off like a nightmare. Buildings start crumbling to dust, and people lose their minds, sprinting for their lives as wreckage rains down. Atop the wreckage stands Mard, fused with those giant insect machines, grinning as he says the screams sound amazing, and crushing people is the best fun he's had in ages. Inside the palace, the king demands a full report on the monsters tearing up the castle town, and he presses hard on one thing. Is the barrier still holding? Anti keeps his voice steady as he tells everyone the barrier still hasn't been broken. Then Look hits him with a, but that changes everything. He stared out at the city, pure chaos, so someone snapped, what the hell is even going on? And as Mard just floats there, totally unhinged, he mutters that he's going to wipe everything out. He's fully transformed now, snapping his giant mechanical legs into action, demanding they obliterate everything in his way. No obstacles left standing. A colossal centipede monster looms over the whole city, and Mard yells that he's going to smash it all to pieces. Artemis's face twists in panic. She screams at her father about the Grail rite as he realizes something's off, and before he even finishes his thought, he blurts out that the barrier it's completely gone, obliterated, while monstrous flyers swarm the sky over the ruined city. Anti immediately slams down the order to deploy the Artemis Walnut Squad, and Artemis wastes zero time. She's already on it. Artemis stares with laser focus, then tells him, I'm counting on you to take care of this, just handle it. While someone up above shouts Gamma's name, the whole street erupts into chaos. People sprint through the ruins as Gamma just freezes in place, pure shock ripping through him. He can barely blurt out Mart's name, because all he can do is stare at the nightmare tearing up the world in front of him. Mard swivels back with one chilling eye peeking through his mask, then casually slings a yo at Gamma like they're nothing more than old pals. He can't even believe his eyes. Gamma is really standing there, and he admits he never once saw Gamma rising all the way to S rank for Majuku. Gamma can't believe it and blurts, Is that really me? Then he snaps at Mabel that she has to get back right now because things are getting dangerously out of control. He hears those creepy mechanical clicks spilling from Mard's body, and it hits him. Those demon insects didn't just happen. Someone planned them. And when he finally looks up and demands how this even got this far, the moment cuts. But Mard just stares down, bored out of his mind, and asks who even bothers caring about something like that then. And Gamma isn't having any of that. He snaps back and tells him, straight up, that of course it matters, and he's not letting this go. The giant monster still looms over the rooftops, and Gamma screams at him to stop tearing up the city. Right now, Mard leans down from the massive centipede's body and snaps at Gamma to stop guessing and ask the monster itself what's really going on, because he's got zero answers left. Gamma just stands there, frozen, completely baffled, and he can't even find the words. As Mabel shouts his name from behind, Mart's tone turns sharp, telling Gamma he has to listen to his advice right this second. He's nearly swallowed by those mechanical insect legs as he snaps to Gamma, basically telling him to stay as far away from him as possible. Gamma pushes for answers, asking what he even means, but Mar cuts him off with a sharp snap. Just do what you're told, or he lets out a frustrated sigh, admitting he has no clue what's about to happen next, so he simply calm. And he keeps saying he's clueless, while Gamma roars back at him, trying to reach him before. A creepy, sharp-toothed grin snaps onto Mard's face, and he mutters one chilling word, "Kill." Suddenly the ground explodes upward, and Mabel shrieks Gamma's name as she thrusts her hand forward, triggering her earth transformation magic, sending massive chunks of rock flying everywhere. And even Mard looks totally stunned as the entire area erupts into a non-stop explosion. Mechanical legs slam out in a burst of metal, snapping onto the wreckage with a thunderous crash. Mard snaps inside the rock shell, howling for them to open the door, then flips straight to vicious death threats. Mabel looks completely wiped out as she tells Gamma, "This barrier is basically as far as I can go." She's panicking, because if Mard's really tied to that bug tribe, then they've bitten off way more than they can handle. And she reminds Gamma that the guy was his friend, making the whole situation hit even harder. Oscar and Malik burst in at the perfect moment, and they slam the truth down. Mard just put the entire city in danger, telling Gamma he can't afford a second of doubt, even though it's wild that he actually knows the guy. Oscar tells them a report just hit the garrison. One soldier is mutating into something else, so he demands to know if this monster is truly Mard. Gamma starts to ask how Oscar knows all of this, but Malik slams him down and cuts him off, straight from the top of Oscar's head. The squirrel captain puffs on his cigar and tells everyone, "Hang on, talk can wait." Then he snaps, "We're wrecking that thing right now." Right now, Refill is firing off suggestion magic, forcing every last resident into the underground shelter, so everything can stay safe, but things are ice-cold tense. If they rip out that shelter, it's game over for the whole plan. Mabel S. "Use Gamma's composite arrows." But Gamma snaps back that they take forever to charge, so they'll have to grab whatever they can find, because right now they've got no real weapon at all. Right then, Artemis screeched up in a truck, shouting that she'd brought all their gear, and she ordered the Walnut Squad to hit the road immediately. Malik is horrified that a princess would dare drive alone, while Gamma spots Charlotte's gone and snaps, "Where did she go?" Malik tells him Charlotte's already out in the north, slicing through a swarm of dragonfly-like demon bugs with an A-rank squad. Gamma spots the same crew from the forest, but Richter waves him off and says, "Chill, Charlotte's got this." She tells you the O-rank guys just rolled out new armor-piercing rounds, bullets made to smash right through any bug shell they've ever faced. Richter snaps and reveals that the truck Artemis hauled in isn't just any load. It's packed with the exact same high-tech gear. So she snaps at the crew, telling them to quit stalling and get fully geared up for the fight. Gamma and the whole crew dug in hard, staring down whatever comes next, because Mard starts hauling himself out of the rubble on those giant bug legs, barking a warning that anyone who crosses him is about to get a world of pain. He totally snaps, bellows at the top of his lungs, and screams that he's going to kill every single one of them. The squad doesn't waste a second. Let loose a specialized armor-piercing shell meant to split through demon bug hide, and right as it tears in, Gamma releases a dragon arrow, lining it up for the monster's head as the world erupts into explosions. The strikes land clean. Then you can actually see the monster's mechanical armor tear apart and rip off in chunks. That red-haired guy swears they're running like clockwork, and even though Gamma doesn't trust him, Gamma has to admit, somehow, they're perfectly in sync. When you watch the fight closely, you can see it. Those tentacles don't just lash out, they move on their own, acting like a self-made guard to protect the human parts and hide the real weak spots. The whole team huddled up, decided to change the game, and swore to go after the tentacles first. Everyone nodded like, "Yep, this is the move." Even with all that magic and raw firepower, Charlotte realizes she's still got no opening to land the one hit that'll finally finish this. Mart's still blazing in his monster form, roaring at the group to have a little more fun before he turns them all into ash. Right then, a colossal blast of light crashes onto the battlefield, and someone launches a blazing flaming strike that tears through the whole area. Then, out of nowhere, the king blasts onto the scene straight in the middle of the wreckage and debris. Charlotte's jaw drops when she sees him there, and she blurts out, "Your Majesty, what are you even doing on the front lines?" He just flashes a calm smile and tells her he's glad he caught up in time. while Charlotte can't help but wonder if that was the legendary sword aura. The king snaps that the nation's in full-blown crisis, so he'll keep fighting until his legs finally give out. Just as he spots another enemy slipping toward the underground tunnels and snaps if the squad can take care of it, they fire back. "We've got this." Mabel steps forward and blasts earth magic to yank a massive golem into place for the defense. Then everything goes sideways and she spots a massive mechanical centipede monster smashing through the rubble and charging straight at them. Gamma spots the opening and snaps. It's over, because the monster's got 0 tentacles left to cower behind. Staring at the wreckage, she can't help but think about the 2 people she once knew, back when everything was still different, and she still had a life to lose. Everyone's actually smiling. She still remembers Mard laughing and kicking it with Gamma like they were inseparable. But now it's chaos. When I look at them today, it's obvious they're both trapped in the same nightmare. And then it cuts off with a massive blast scream straight through Mard's monster body, ripping him to shreds and dropping him shattered on the ground, totally wrecked. Mard lifts his bloodied face, yells Gamma's name, and admits, finally, that he just clocked how insanely strong he really is. He's crushed to the bone now, begging, "Is this pathetic ending really what I deserve after everything I've done?" So he just glares through the tears, begging them to put him out of his misery and end his pathetic life once and for all. Gamma's jaw drops. She can't believe he's like this, and she's left staring in shock, thinking, why is Mard crying after everything he's dragged down and caused? Suddenly, a massive mechanical limb slams into view, towering over everything as the chaos cranks up even harder. Gamma freezes in pure shock as a mechanical centipede's tail clamps down on someone and yanks them clean off their feet. Gamma's face goes white with pure panic as he realizes what's happening, and right beside him, someone yells at the monster to let him go. But the monster hurls him aside like he's trash, then starts boasting, screaming that no matter what they try, it'll just keep regenerating its body forever, while the massive mechanical limb grinds into place and snaps shut in its new position. Artemis and Malak can only stand there in horror as a massive building starts to fall apart, and then someone yells Gamma's name, right as concrete and steel slam down where he was. Then boom! The entire street gets gulped down by a massive wall of dust and wreckage. Artemis is trembling, barely processing what she just witnessed, and she keeps whispering Gamma under her breath while everyone else freezes in dead silence, staring as the smoke finally clears. Malak adjusts his glasses, his face set in grim certainty, and admits he totally misread the danger. He underestimated just how brutal the enemy is, so he calls Richter right away and tells her the situation has flipped. Word hits that they're about to torch the whole sector to the ground with their new weapon, and Richter just can't swallow it. He blurts out that they can't mean it when people are still hiding in the underground shelters, but the voice on the other end snaps back, telling her to calm down, refill already checked, and everyone's been hauled over to the evacuation zone. He admits there's nothing left to do now, so the driver double-checks the orders, then bolts out as the massive military truck rips into gear, roaring away from the ruins to finish the mission. Malak stands shoulder to shoulder with Mabel as she drops to her knees, and she won't stop yelling Gamma's name, and her eyes blow wide with pure shock as she gapes at the exact spot where the building just crumpled. Someone tells her to calm down, but Malak fires back that Gamma hasn't been beaten yet, so she needs to stay locked in. But the monster's massive claws slam down toward them, and Malak yells for Mabel to bolt before the next strike lands. As the creature's jagged, mechanical legs crash into the ground, they trap her, pinning her there where she can't move. Mabel shoots her gaze upward, and the only thing her eyes catch is the monster looming over her, utterly overpowering. Right there in the dirt, a hand shoots out, snatching for the tiny bird charm someone dropped earlier. Mard tilts his head down with that twisted, creepy grin, acting like the fight is already over, like he's won then. But the captain's eyes snap wide at a shape crawling through the dust, and the words die in his throat as a brutal, crushing strike slams into the monster's face out of nowhere, so hard it cracks the mask apart on impact. That monster just gets slammed. Massive mechanical chunks and debris explode in every direction, and Mabel stands frozen, watching it all crash down as the smoke starts to thin, someone blurts, "What in the world just happened?" And then Gamma finally steps in, standing right in the middle of the wreckage. Mabel shrieks his name, and Gamma just stares at his own hand like he's spaced out, straight up shocked at what he's done. Mabel screams for him as she charges over, and Malak jumps in too, yelling that he's finally breathing easy because Gamma is actually safe. Malak won't shut up. He keeps talking at Gamma, insisting he's the one who scared them because just for a moment, they really thought he was done for. Then Malak's curiosity snaps on. He blurted out what that wild power was, because Gamma didn't even look like he was touching his bow. Gamma straight up admits he's just as lost as everyone else, then says he heard Mabel scream, and before he even thought, his body just took over and moved. That's when Oscar jumps in, pointing out it could be the very same power the Emperor wields. Gamma can barely wrap his head around it, stammering, "Wait, is it really the exact same?" Oscar nods and flat out names it Sword Kai. Gamma just freezes, staring into the distance like, did he really tap into power that old legends talk about? Malak watches Gamma from behind with a hard, serious stare, then steps in and talks to Oscar, ready to lay out exactly what he thinks is going on with Gamma's power right now. Mard's towering insect form is left as a smoking wreck after that last blast, and Malak can't wrap his head around how Gamma lived. He blurts out if Gamma can do it again. But then Gamma finally admits the last hit was basically a lucky accident. And then he straight up tells them there's no way they'll recreate that stunt again. As the monster's shadow crashes over the city rooftops, the whole crew panics. They know their old plan won't cut it. Then Gamma grins like he's got the answer to end Mard for good. He explains that unlike normal monsters, Mard's still got a human mind buried inside, so magic that targets the brain might actually hit. And that realization is terrifying. So he decides to craft a special composite arrow, load it with refill suggestion magic, and gamble on a brand new strategy. He's thinking, if we can just reach the human side of Mard and get him to stop, then his insane healing won't even be a problem anymore. Malak isn't buying this plan. He tells Gamma, "Every time I try to make an arrow out of refill, I mess it up completely." Gamma goes silent for a beat, and from across the way, his sister keeps her eyes on him and whispers his name. One of the girls suddenly steps forward and slams down a giant anti-insect grenade launcher, bragging that she can blast the monster to pieces and wipe the whole city clean. She stares down the target with deadly calm, warning them she never misses. And then she's ready to bring this to a final, brutal stop right now. Artemis locks eyes with Gamma and demands, "So why'd you choose a suggestion magic arrow?" Her face lights up with curiosity as she leans in, about to finish the question. He's asking whether he's doing this for some friend, even though his old party treated him like trash and threw him out. The whole crew huddles together amid the destroyed city, and the wind howls through the rubble like it's hunting them down. Gamma drops his gaze and straight up admits he isn't a saint, then claims he definitely didn't forget the dumb reason they threw him away, and he hasn't forgiven them a single bit. So there's no way he's doing this out of pure kindness of his heart. But he tells it straight. He's not the kind of guy who'd ever want to murder the man. He just doesn't have that cruelty in him. Artemis couldn't stop himself. His smile lit up when he heard that answer, because it was proof of how brutally honest that was. She finally gives in and tells him he's got one shot, but if he blows it, she'll grab the reins and pull the trigger herself. Gamma doesn't even blink. He snaps out a "yes, sir," and takes the high-stakes deal like it's already destiny. Suddenly, Richter strides forward, jabs his finger up, and casually says it looks like it's finally her time to step in and help. Raphael gets called over, and she snaps back that every resident is out and safe. Then the call cuts off as the next word hangs there, trailing off into "but." Malak doesn't waste a second. He races in, apologizes for the rush, and asks how much longer she'll need to finish prepping the special arrow for Gamma. Raphael flashes him a teasing grin like, "Don't forget, I'm a succubus," and it hits him hard as she carries on acting like it's not a big deal, but he throws out this teasing, almost suggestive joke about wrapping everything up in the blink of an eye. Richter snaps her attention back to Gamma, telling her that magic in the arrow doesn't just fire a spell. It lets the caster shove their own spirit straight into the shot. She breaks it down for him and says, "Just dive straight into that centipede monster's mind, talk to the girl face to face." And Gamma just nods like, "Yeah, I've got it." While they prep, she leans in and tells him the moment he's inside her mind world, real-world time just freezes, so he can stop worrying about the clock. Gamma stares ahead with a hardened expression, fighting through the weight of everything Oscar and Raphael endured just to carve out this one real chance for him to save it all. He clamps his bow tight, feeling the whole world on his shoulders, and swears to himself that if this fails, he's done. Staring him down from across the rubble, the massive monster Mukoden waits, half man, half machine, an absolute freak show in the ruined streets. Mukoden finally spots Gamma in the distance, screams that it's found him, and towers over the ruined city like a nightmare. But Gamma is already locked in, with Raphael breathing down his neck, pouring all that magical power into one razor-sharp point as the two of them raise their aim and loose the special shot at the same time, shouting the arrow's name, blooming word, soul together. The arrow slices through the air like raw lightning, and even though Mew somehow can't catch it in time, there's no way. The monster rockets out of the way in a blink, then smashes the attack straight into the centipede's core, perfectly. He blasts it with a wall of light until it shrieks, and the suggestion magic starts clawing its way into its mind. Everything snaps back to Charlotte, the Walnut Squad's vice captain, swaying there, looking wrecked, blood staining her. Tears streaked down her face as memories slammed back. Her trapped at the Empire's underground mining site, screaming for the king. The Magica Empire's king just slumps there, looking utterly drained, while Charlotte stares, horrified, wondering what kind of nightmare they'd stumbled into, because even the king's own sword Kai couldn't cut through it. George grins behind his mask and tells the king, "I'm taking every last drop of what you've worked so hard to protect." The king dug in and stared them down, sneering that they were nothing but bug monsters, then demanded how in the world he even knew about the Empire's hidden stash. George admits it's usually impossible for anyone from the demon insect tribe to get information like that. But he leans over the sprawling underground facility and declares that every corner here is crucial for his research, especially the magic ore and warp stones. The mining operation is absolutely massive, powered by roots from the fairy realm that let them yank limitless riches straight out of the earth. George tells him he's been waiting for years, letting it all build up, watching every moment and holding his patience bite by bite. He actually turns to the king and the whole kingdom and thanks them, because that holy grail barrier locked up his research gear and kept it safe all this time. The king looks absolutely rattled, locks eyes with George under that mask, and demands to know who he really is. George just glances back, stunned the king still hasn't clocked who he really is. Then, after all that tension, he finally straightens up, decides to be polite, and introduces himself as George Jakari, standing tall right in the middle of the wrecked facility. George drops a massive bombshell on the king, revealing that the mastermind behind the Empire's entire underground city was him all along. Storming away, Gamma just stood frozen, because the full weight of what happened finally started to hit. Gamma spins in the darkness, and the empty void hits him. He's literally landed inside Mart's mental world. But then it all starts sliding into memories of that old party. Gamma can't tell if he's looking at Mart's past, until a voice hits. Does Mard regret failing to save Deku and the others? Mard crumpled in the rubble of his own mind, groaning in sharp agony. Then the centipede monster was finally gone, right as Gamma shouted his name. Princess Gamma stands there and tells Mard, "Don't worry, I'm getting you out of this mess and waking you up right now," shifting his mind into a brutal vision of a modern city in ruins, crumbling skyscrapers everywhere, like the world just collapsed. Mard tilts his head to the clouds and whispers Gamma's name, and Gamma just gives him a tiny nod, like, "Yeah, I'm listening." Mard finally snapped the truth out of his own mouth, confessing he'd been insanely jealous of Gamma the whole time, all because Gamma made strength look effortless. But it wasn't only about power. Gamma had the one prize Mard craved more than anything in the world, and deep down, he knew he'd never be able to touch it. Mard keeps ranting as he stares at the fake city, insisting to Gamma that his true power. Gamma didn't just feel powerful. He just stood there, jaw set, listening as Mard admits that, because he's finally admitting he's truly sorry for kicking him out of the party back then. This hits hard, and yeah, it's a heavy moment. When Gamma can't even process what he's hearing, he just freezes, eyes locked on Mard, and goes silent for one stunned second. Gamma pops the question, does Mard even know how to apologize? And just like that, Mard snaps. Mard bursts out that he's finally trying to be serious for once. But Gamma doesn't even blink, saying he's genuinely impressed by the change, even as Hesha lets out a giggle at the two of them, and Malik can't help thinking he's watching a pair of toddlers brawl. Gamma shoots out his hand and tells Mard to get out, right now. Then Mard slips into silence and agrees. Gamma yanks him up on the spot, and the whole mental world cracks open like shattered glass. Gamma's face twists with strain as the jump hits, blood streaking across their skin while they tear back toward reality. Gamma clamps down on Mard's hand and hauls him free, yelling his name as they finally break into motion. But the second they stumble back into the real world, Gamma's eyes blow wide open. He can't even catch what he's seeing, whispering, "What's happening?" A colossal mechanical monster looms right over them, its massive metal claws raking the ruins, while Gamma stands his ground, refusing to budge. George Jakari leans over the machine, smirking as he declares Gamma's life is about to end, right here, right now. He keeps needling him, firing off taunts, and asking Mr. Hunter if the monster's so terrifying that he's gone speechless. Gamma freezes as George launches into the experiment, and Gamma can't help wondering just how long a demon insect can last pretending to be human. Then he blurts the bombshell. Mard was the one who actually teamed up to pull off this whole experiment. George grins like he just struck gold, bragging that he can turn those Mard cells into wild new life forms, and that his research isn't stopping anytime soon. But Gamma's had enough. He glares at his blood-stained hands, then snaps at the guy to shut up. Blood splattered across his face as he stared George down. No more backing down. He made it crystal clear he wouldn't let George get his way again. Gamma locks eyes straight ahead, blood streaking his face as he tells George, "I'm the one you can't ever forgive." As the towering mechanical nightmare looms over the wreckage, it's poised to slam down and crush everything in its path. Oscar and Malik step onto the battlefield, staring down the chaos, while Malik stays locked in, waiting for the next order until off. But Oscar spots the hulking enemy and snaps. This is the demon insect tribe. His mind races because where did they even come from? And right beside him someone blurts, "Wait, what is that thing?" One of the fighters snaps into it. He realizes the enemy didn't just arrive fast. They used ancient teleportation magic to blink in out of nowhere. Up high above them, George leans over with a smug grin, making it crystal clear he's part of the demon insect tribe. Gamma doesn't even blink. He plants his feet, squares up to the monster, and tells it in no uncertain terms that it's not getting its way anymore. He leans in, spots the scam instantly, and realizes the mate in front of him is nothing but a sham stuffed with swarming insects. So he moves in he locks onto the real target, the massive black machine, and decides the strike has to land right there. George stared at this in shock, then told Gamma his destiny is so tangled in fog that he can't make out the truth. George leans over the massive machine and fires a question at Gamma. Is he really a crossbreed, human mixed with another race? Because that's the only thing that would explain why. Gamma keeps repeating destiny under his breath, trying to decode the words he's hearing, while George keeps talking, insisting destiny isn't some magic force at all. It's just the role humans are stuck playing. He tells Gamma that his friend's destiny is unlike anything anyone's ever seen. And right there in the middle of the record, the two of them just stand and let the moment hit. George snaps that his appraisal eye only lights up with human blood, So if it's going off right now, Gamma's fused with something it shouldn't be. Gamma can barely process it, so he blurts out a stunned question. Are you sure he's mixed with another race? Artemis clamps a hand to her head, wincing as a brutal wave of memories crashes into her mind. Raphael stared across the battlefield, baffled at where that monster crawled from and what was going on. Until she stares at the giant black machine, and the moment it clicks, she realizes, somehow, it looks weirdly familiar. She can't shake that feeling, so she whispers Mabel under her breath. And the moment it clicks, pure shock flashes across her face. Mabel stands on the rubble-strewn edge of the destroyed city, staring out as Raphael watches. He can feel it too. Something is horribly wrong with that tense vibe hangs in the air. Then Mabel's eyes widen, because she realizes it's not new at all, like she stood in this exact spot before. Panic spikes through her. She can't believe this is really the end, until a horrifying memory smashes back in, a giant claw snapping around her. In her memory, she's trapped under a crushing mountain of rubble, arm outstretched, begging for help while everything around her crumbles. Mabel snaps, screaming at the top of her lungs, demanding it stop as she clamps both hands to her head. She's pushed past her breaking point, drops her staff, and unleashes a scream like she's begging the world to just end. Right now. Raphael snaps in at the last second, catches her as she crumples, and clings to her tight to make sure she's still breathing and okay. Mabel's eyes flutter closed as Raphael panics, shouting her name over and over, begging her to wake up. Raphael bursts onto the radio and tells the captain, I'm yanking Mabel out of there, because those insect monsters freak me out. Malik hears her and goes, I need you to get the kid to safety, because I'm not trying to relive those memories. Gamma's sister yells his name, but he's already set on running off. He snaps that they've got to retreat since they don't have the right gear to take on these bugs yet. And then, Mard realizes the insect monsters aren't actually wrecking the city. Gamma nods along. But Mard just can't resist being a jerk and snaps at Gamma, asking why he won't follow his senior's advice. And that's where the argument with Gamma glares at the ground like it personally betrayed him, then snaps, saying he'll kill them and tear them down with his own bare hands while the girl beside him freezes in total shock, trying to process the raw intensity pouring off him right now as George hangs back and watches Gamma push harder and harder, like he refuses to quit. Yet George still doesn't look impressed, and he's about to drop something. Asks Gamma what he thinks he can pull off in a mess like this. Gamma looks down at him from afar then he snaps that he's not drawn to anything that's just strong. And when he admits his time, running out, he turns to leave because he's done talking, but the second he turns away, a brutal burst of energy tears through the air, ripping the sound right out of the moment. George's eyes snap wide with shock. Something darts faster than he ever imagined, slamming into him and leaving him utterly off guard as the ground rips open from a colossal slam, and Gamma doesn't let him escape. He charges straight into the fight. Gamma surges forward with insane speed, ripping through the area and slamming everything into a trail of wreckage behind him. Everyone watching snaps into shock, because that power they just saw from him was absolutely no fluke. Malik points at him, and the girl nearby can't even find words as she stares, stunned. When they stare at the chaos, they realize his machine is absolutely wrecked, so they just assume that's how Gamma does things. Someone says they were worried about all the dark stuff he'd been spouting earlier, but seeing him move now, it's totally different, especially after watching something brutal unfold right in front of their eyes. The shock hits like a boulder, so heavy it even cuts off the next word. But then Gamma's focus snaps. His eyes lock in tight as something inside him finally starts to shift. He stares at his own hand, stunned, as an insane, impossible power rips through his whole body like a storm. It's almost too wild to take in, and he can't help but wonder if this insane power is what they call Sword Kai. But then boom, the whole world twists into a dark, shadow-soaked version of the ruins, and he freezes in place like he's about to finish the sentence, standing in. Gamma demands to know what just happened. Then a voice snaps back, telling him he's now trapped inside a domain sealed off from the entire real world. Gamma snaps into a total freeze. He can't move a muscle, while George casually locks in his movements and tells him he's helping by sealing them so they can. They finally get a private talk in this freaky, ruined space. George scans the broken place like, this is it, because everything's finally clicking in his head. He's saying it explains how Gamma can wreck heavy armor with nothing but his bare hands. And he points straight at him, grinning like, look at this, way more interesting than George ever expected. George clocks that Gamma isn't some mindless brute after all, and Gamma just freezes there, totally lost. Wait, what are you talking about? But George totally snaps, bursting into wild, psycho laughter, praising Gamma like it's a masterpiece, and swearing he can't believe his own creation was actually out here living on its own. He leans in and shoots a question at Gamma. Are you from the demon border? And Gamma's eyes flare wide, stunned that George even knows something like that. George muttered to himself, because of course it matched what he'd suspected all along. Then he snapped his gaze to Gamma, and he admits he tossed out a mountain of failed test subjects ages ago, never once imagining he'd stumble into one out here. Before he starts, he lunges in, lands the final hit, and declares to Gamma that it was him who truly forged everything. George beams, brings Gamma back in, then, boom, stares him dead in the eyes and drops the wildest truth. Gamma isn't just family, he's George's son, because George is his real father. Gamma froze in pure shock, and George just kept rolling, blasting the truth that his power was way past anything normal, then asking if Gamma had finally caught on yet. He bursts into a wild ramble, claiming he might have been the real one to invent Gamma, then spiraling into doubt like, am I really the boy's maker? Gamma stared down at his clawed, armored hand, at those razor-sharp points in the cold metal like, why does this even feel so wrong? And then it all snaps into place. He stares at his own hands and realizes the demon's tech is the exact same thing. He snaps back to Feli's symptoms from years ago, watching her lie there, racked with pain, while their foster parent Genkoji stood guard over her. And young Gamma panicked and told Genkoji something was seriously wrong with him, and Genkoji just couldn't wrap his head around it. Why would a kid be hit with the very same disease that's been tormenting every adult in the village? Wondering if it was some nasty local curse that didn't give a damn about age at all. Back in the present, Gamma finally clicks. Feli's wasn't sick at all, and that strange power of his was never actually Sword Kai. He stares in horror as it clicks. Everything that hit the village, every single person, was just George's plan unfolding. Gamma freezes in place as the truth finally lands. He realizes George didn't just find him. He made asterisk him, and Gamma's one of the demon insect tribe, which George seals with a creepy grin. Then he snaps at Gamma not to call him this guy, and with a formal bow he declares, I'm George Jakari, before he snaps out of the act and names Gamma a test subject. Then Gamma freezes, repeating the words as panic hits, imagining Mabel and his sister trapped in George's sick experiments. Rage takes over in a flash. He realizes George caused everyone's lives to get shattered. Then he rockets straight at him, but he swings wildly, screaming that George is the one person he'll never forgive. Yet it doesn't matter because George catches Gamma's punch with one hand like it's nothing. Then he growls that trying to fight back is pointless, and with a snap of motion, they're split apart again. George just stands there stone calm like he's about. He tells Gamma his demon insect powers won't stand a chance here, then glances back over his shoulder and breaks down why this place is the rule set itself. If he truly thinks Gamma's power doesn't exist, reality will snap to that belief, and that's why Gamma's about to be left. Gamma listens in pure horror as George lays it out. His machine reads his thoughts and then bends the entire space to his will. George lifts his face behind the mask, slaps a name on his magic machine, Echo Chamber, and swears that's exactly where its real power comes from, and with a thought alone, he bends space, trapping the world in a dark void that wipes out everything else, making Gamma realize this whole spot screams George advantage, and panic hit. So he decides the only escape is to smash the machine from the outside. But he also knows space is severed from reality, and time has probably frozen out there. So he can't rely on Oscar or any of his friends to save him, not after he's already gone. He got totally shut down. No bow, no powers until George smirks to gloat that his demon insect powers are sealed. Because to him, Gamma is just a pathetic lab animal, and he's dead set on studying every single cell in Gamma's body. He just looks absolutely terrifying as he vows he'll tear Gamma apart, piece by piece. Then he starts slashing with his weapons and hammering the ground. But Gamma bursts through the rubble and dodges the whole hit. George watches him rush past and can't help but admit it. This speed is exactly what you'd expect from a top-tier hunter. George starts talking trash to Gamma, saying wiping out Yusrika's machines didn't prove a thing. Then Gamma snaps to the truth. He can't just sit there anymore, because even if George is only a fake body stuffed with bugs, playing defense means certain death. So he rockets forward. So fast he leaves after images streaking through the ruins, hunting for a crack in the defenses. While he's deciding the only play left, he has to wipe out every single insect George is using. He can't let the guy find any opening to land a hit, but he has zero idea how to shut down George's mind and consciousness for good. He doubles down on his plan, no mercy. Just smash the physical bugs that stitch together the guy's body. And then, out of nowhere, a colossal mechanical leg slams out of the sky, wrecking the ground and blasting rocks everywhere like shrapnel. George steps back, admits he's no real frontline fighter like the rest, and then unleashes ancient magic to teleport his tech straight in. And he swears that with this gear, he'll unleash more power than any insectoid's Gamma has ever laid eyes on.